Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the SCORE webinar, Pricing Strategies for Your Products and Services. And you really are so fortunate today because you have Sandy DeWald as your instructor, and she's an expert in this. So she's an expert in bringing new products to the market. With 20 years of experience in the manufacturing industry, she's developed and launched hundreds of new products in multiple market segments. She knows the whole process. As a lifelong learner, she has a BS in English and Biology from the University of South Carolina and an MBA from Union University. She's excited to share what she's learned in both academic and real-world business settings to help new entrepreneurs bring their ideas to life. Her key areas of expertise involve the entire life cycle of new product development, including market research and idea validation, developing product specifications, features, and benefits, and effectively launching new products into the market. So not only is she going to tell you the nuts and bolts, but she's going to give you real life experience that you will be able to apply to your life and your business. So today, if you have a question or a comment, please enter it in the chat or the QA. I will be monitoring those as well as Sandy. As she said, she's going to have breaks every hour or so, at which point we will address those questions. Something pertinent to the topic that she's talking about at the moment. So without further ado, Sandy, the floor is yours.
Great, thank you. And I should say that Michelle is my super capable assistant today. So that's why we tag team these together so I can focus on delivering content and then she can focus on all the making sure everything is running correctly on the backside. So like she said, if there's any questions, feel free to put them in the chat or the Q&A and she'll be monitoring that. If it's something kind of timely that needs to happen, like something pertinent to the slide that information I'm sharing at that moment, she'll interrupt me, or we can kind of hold them for the kind of the break sessions. Either way, it works for me to answer them during the presentation or at the breaks. So why we kind of wait for people to jump in, I'm going to cover some kind of housekeeping slides, and then we'll kind of get into the meat of the content today. It will be probably a full 3 hours. When I've done this before, it's always kind of been that full 3 hours, just depending on the questions and the interaction and the number of people attending. But like I said, there will be breaks. And if you ever need to take a break at some point, please feel free to do that. You can always come back. There's a lot of information. So I'll just tell you right now, you're kind of focus on like maybe one or two nuggets that you can pull out of this. You can go back. Michelle will send out the slides later as well as the recording. So you can go back and rewatch some areas or kind of go reference to the slides if you need to, because it will be a lot of information kind of coming at you it's a packed 3 hours of time. Okay, this is me. There we go. So a little bit about SCORE. SCORE is a volunteer organization. So there's the national SCORE that's across the entire United States. And then there's different chapters throughout the US. We are the Nashville chapter. So again, I'm a volunteer. Michelle's a volunteer. Everyone you meet with SCORE is a volunteer. There's a couple different things that SCORE does is kind of our mission. We are a nonprofit organization, so we work alongside the SBA or the Small Business Administration, but we're not part of them, but we work with them closely to kind of provide resources for small businesses that they don't provide in the SBA. One of the things that SCORE provides is mentoring. I don't know if maybe you can put in the chat if anybody has a SCORE mentor today. A mentors are really great. It's a free resource, so we highly recommend it for any small businesses. So you think of your SCORE mentor as kind of your business coach. So they're there to kind of bounce ideas off of, to ask questions, to maybe provide other resources. They're not going to give you the answers. It's still your business, but they can kind of provide that sounding board. And it's really a great way because sometimes when you're in business, you can talk to your friends and family, you can talk to other people, but sometimes it's hard to kind of find a network, or it's hard to share kind of the behind the scenes of your business with somebody else that understands business. And the SCORE mentors have a really great depth of knowledge in kind of how businesses run and can help you within different aspects of your business. And then they bring in subject matter experts to kind of go deep dive into specific areas. So if you don't have one, you can go, if you're in the Nashville area, you can go to the website in the bottom left-hand corner and you can sign up for a mentor. And then you can give a little information and they try to match you up with a mentor that fits your needs. But make sure if you're in the Nashville area that you go to the Nashville score site and not the national one, because you don't want to get a mentor in California if you live in Nashville, because your mentors here can give you local resources that can help you. The other part of SCORE is education. So it's workshops like this one today. It's seminars, it's webinars, there's a variety of different things, symposiums, kind of all day events. So there's different educations. Now that you're in our email list, we'll let you know about different ones coming up. Also on the website, Michelle does a great job of kind of putting the next 3 months or so of kind of education content, and whether it's a webinar or a workshop or whatever that is kind of coming up, so you can sign up for those. Some we schedule regularly, like there's some that happen every month, some happen every quarter, some happen maybe 2 times a year, some once a year. So it just kind of depends on kind of what the event is and how often we have it. I will say that you can look at the Nashville. So we do kind of live ones like this. You can also look at the national score, just the score.org website. And they also have different webinars that you can sign up for at that national level. So if you're needing a marketing one and we don't have one in the Nashville chapter, you can go to the national score organization, and there somebody in that at that level might be offering a webinar on marketing that you could take. So as Michelle kind of gave me a brief introduction, so I am a volunteer with SCORE, but I'm not a mentor. I would not be your business coach, but I'm a subject matter expert. So my role with SCORE is kind of deep diving in some specific areas. And so my areas, as Michelle talked about, my areas actually is product development, product marketing. I've launched many new products over the years, and then pricing is a key integral part of any product or service, because a lot of times when you have a product, services kind of go along with it. Or if you're a service-based business, you might launch products. So I will say today we're going to talk a little bit about some pricing strategies that are specific to products, some are specific to services, and some can be applicable to both. And I would say if you're a service-based business, don't tune out on the product ones, because you might think about ways you can offer products into your service business, because it's a nice add-on sale. Or if you're a product-based business, don't zone out during the service ones, because again, you might be able to offer a service on top of that product offering. So kind of think about, they go hand in hand, and the other one can add to kind of an upsell or add on to your business, to your existing clients. Think about, okay, well, I can add this product and sell to my clients if I'm a service-based business, or if I'm a product business. Hey, are there services and things that I can add onto this product for my existing client base? All right, so if you want to put in the chat or the Q&A, maybe like, who is a product business and who is a service-based business primarily? You may have both, but what do you consider yourself? I'll look over in the chat, see if anybody's answering. Anyone? Oh, both. Great. Service. Okay. Oh, developing a product. Nice. Service with products. Great. So it seems like we've got quite a few that are kind of both or considering both. So again, I think this will be great, because there's the first part of this will be kind of things that apply to both. And then I'm going to branch out into kind of specific strategies that might be product based, might be service based, and then some strategies that could apply to both. So that's we got a mix of kind of both in here today. So the next question I'm going to ask you is like, okay, who feels this about their pricing? Like, you know what, you got it. You're very confident. You have it. figured out, you know the structure, you know why you priced what you did, you understand it feels like it's all working for you. If you feel that way, then you can put like, "Ooh, that's me. I'm confident." You put that in the chat. Or you might feel this about your pricing. You're like, I'm not really sure. I don't know if it's working. I don't know if it's priced right. Am I leaving money on the table? I just kind of put a price up there and thought, oh, this sounds about right. Or, there was no strategy behind it, or kind of the reasoning why you price things the way you did. The latter. Thank you for being honest. Because I would tell you that based on the people I've talked to, and even over the years and as much as I've done it, that, there are times when you're just like, is this the right price? I don't know. They're always going to have that little bit of hesitation about, is this the right price or not for this? Um, or you're just, sometimes I've talked to people that are just like, I don't know, this is what I thought. Or the way their reasoning behind why they priced it, it was like, okay, left some things out where they weren't really capturing everything about their pricing. So we're going to talk today about kind of some mistakes or myths or reasons why you might be pricing the way you are, and then we're going to give you some kind of strategies. Again, you're still going to need to decide for your business what works for you, and then there's multiple different kind of pricing strategies and theories behind pricing about why you might do one or the other. So we're going to kind of to talk through those. But it's really, pricing it can be fun. I promise you it can be. In the sense that, understanding the whys behind and how you build that pricing um, is really kind of, it's like figuring out a puzzle. And maybe that's why it's interesting to me, because you're like, oh, well, I can do this lever or this lever, or this is the why I'm doing it. But even if the reasoning is not fully you know set in concrete, at least you have some reason why you're pricing the way you are, as opposed to just kind of throwing out a number and going, well, I guess that's about right. So that's where we want to get to that, some kind of strategy behind your pricing of your products and services. So again, pricing is as much science as it is art. We're going to talk a little bit about like behavioral science, which is kind of the reasoning behind some of these pricing strategies. But it's also going to be a little bit of art, where you're still going to have to try some things. You're still going to have to see, you're going to have to put some pricing out there. You're going to have to adjust it probably, especially kind of new products or in the beginning, until you kind of dial it in. So that's why I'm not going to tell you today, if you sell X, you should, if this is your product, you should sell it at this, or if this is your offer, this is what you should price it at. It's not that cut and dry, which we kind of wish it would be, but nothing in business is quite that cut and dry. So there's a little bit of that science, but a little bit of that art, where you have to you need to know your market, your product, and your customers to know kind of where your pricing needs to be. I'm going to show you multiple models and strategies today. Again, one might work, one may not work if you're a business. You may take a combination of two different strategies for your business, especially if you're a product and a service business. You may price one way for your products and one way for your services. So, or there's ways to combine strategies to kind of bundle things together and to kind of, depending on what your specific business is. But again, all of this is supposed to be, you at least have a reason for why you're doing what you're doing with your pricing. Whether it works or doesn't work, or if you need to adjust it, that's all part of business, but you would at least have some kind of, okay, I understand this is at least why I'm doing what I'm doing. Why is pricing important? Well, I mean, we're in a capitalist society where, you need to have it. Price is an exchange for goods and services. And you as the business owner, and I kind of, sometimes I get with business owners that have some conflict with money, as far as like money is bad, or we shouldn't be, we're gouging people, or like, no, you have a valuable product or service that you're offering. Your product or service solves a need for that customer, and that's worth something. That value, that time, your expertise, your development process, all that, your thoughtfulness into that product or service is worth something. You're helping somebody else, and for that, you should have our current economy is an exchange of money for pricing for that. So you want to make sure that your time and effort is equitable to the money that you're receiving. Because if you don't make money as a business, you're not going to stay in business. You can't help anybody if you don't make money. That's just how our society works. So think about pricing as giving you the resources so you can continue to help people or continue to offer that product or service. You also want to make sure that you're maximizing your profit. So we will talk a little bit about revenue and pricing with revenue versus your profit margin. And there's a great workshop about finances that we offer in SCORE. So I'd take that one if you haven't. But it talks about there's revenue and there's profit. So you have to make sure that you want to maximize your profit margin. So you're wanting to make sure you don't leave money on the table, but you're also pricing things accordingly to make sure you're covering all your costs and delivering a profit to you in the business. And pricing defines value, whether we like it or not, whether we agree or not. Put your consumer hat on. A price determines a value. It defines a value for that product or service. And how you price can signal different values, or could signal a wrong value to the customer or the right value to the customer. So we'll talk a little bit about it too, but it signals value. Think about as a consumer, when you see a price on something, you're determining, is that product or service worth that price? And so you're assigning, even internally as a consumer, a value to that product or service based on that price. So a couple of things I wanted you to think about today. I want you to be very clear about what you want to achieve with your pricing. So your pricing strategy should have a goal. There's different strategies depending on what you want to achieve and what you want it to do for your business. So we'll talk through those in the models and strategies. But you're going to have a very specific reason why you're pricing the way you are. And then whenever you do set that price, be very clear about how that price is positioned with your product or service. And we'll talk a little bit about that. So if you're pricing something, at the low end, kind of like cheap price, what does that signal? What is your positioning around that? But you can't say I'm a luxury product and then I'm going to be the cheapest in the market. So there's things it's a disconnect for customers. And then whatever price you put out there, please, please, please be confident. It's part of one of the things I see most often is people will be in a meeting or they'll be talking to somebody and they'll have a price. And then before the customer even says anything, they're starting to backtrack. Well, but I can give you a discount. I can do that's just the price. They start backing off that price. Like, no, the price is the price. If you've thought about why you're pricing it the way it is, you have a reason for that. So you should be very confident in saying the price is X, and then just stop talking. So, because that's where we can get in trouble, and we immediately start, and we'll talk about why we do this, but many people will tend to start backing off that price. And if you're not confident in the price, why would the consumer think that's a good price? They're going to go, well, wait a minute, if you don't believe the price is that, then why should I pay that? I mean, so kind of always think about it from the consumer's perspective. So we're going to talk about those different pricing strategies. Again, these are things that apply to products or services. You need to kind of know your customer, your cost, your revenue target or your profit margin, and the competition. So those are kind of the things that are going to be, whether it's the research or understanding, because those all build into your pricing strategies. So if you don't know these kind of fundamentals of who your customer is, what your costs are, which is amazing that we don't always think about all the costs in our business, what your profit margin is, and then your competition. It's really hard to put a pricing strategy into effect or a pricing model into effect because you don't really have these base kind of foundation elements. So we're going to roll into those. First one is knowing your customer. And I think that's no matter what your business is, and you may already have a good handle on this if you've been in business for a while or if you're just starting out. We always talk about in every product or service-based business, doing that market research, talking to existing customers if you're in business or potential customers. And you can do that in a variety of ways, but you need to start talking to them about what they value, about what solutions they're already using, what are the options out there for them that your product or service is attempting to address. You also need to talk to them about, I mean, and it can be informal. It can be, depending on where your customer, who your customer is, it could be meeting them in different groups. It could be, I've done where you're just like a little, hey, I need to talk to you. I'm thinking about launching this new product or service. Can I have 10 minutes just to ask you some questions? You're not hard selling. You're literally just asking them questions. And most people are willing to tell you, um, as long as you kind of say, oh, don't take an hour of their time, and that you don't do the hard sell. You're just really just there to ask questions. Trade associations, if you belong to, I think there's a trade association for every type of industry or product or service. There's like the pipe fitters trade association. There's, you know, eh, there was one about like there's one a trade association for doors, like people that just make doors have associations and they have a conference. It's great. So there's probably an association that you belong to. A lot of times they'll put out like annual reports, and sometimes they'll do like pricing ones about their industry because it's anonymous. So multiple companies are putting in information. So they will, so it's aggregated. Again, it's more, it's not specific to maybe your region, but it'll give you a general kind of feel for the market. Or they could have articles, publications, trade journals that have different discussions about kind of pricing or customers, market research in that industry. There's blogs, podcasts, articles, industry thought leaders. There's many different things out there that talk about kind of market research in your industry. So if you're a physical therapist, there's probably different thought leaders kind of in that space, in the healthcare space. You can kind of see what's they're talking about, and you can kind of listen to them or hear them kind of talk about research and customers. There's a lot of information you can kind of glean from what's out there in the market that's publicly available. You also need to understand what your customer values. This is kind of critical because sometimes we think it's important, but it doesn't matter what we think. We may think this product or service is the best thing ever, but does the customer value it? Because I've developed products in the past where and I love my engineers, but they will put like a bunch of features into a product, and you're like, but my question is always like, but will somebody pay for that? Does somebody value? You may think it's a great feature to add in, or you may think it's a great thing to add to your service business, but does your target consumer value it the same way? And do they value it enough to pay for it? That's the other thing. We can add a lot of extras into a product or service, but we have to make sure that the customer values those add-ons and will pay for that add-on. The other thing is to know what problem you're solving for the customer. That's kind of, we always talk about that. And there's a great, Cal does a market research 101 workshop. So he can give you more tips if you want to take that one with the Nashville score. But you have to understand that your product or service is solving a problem for the customer. There's a lot of things that are, if it's a nice to have, people may pay for that, but it's not as, it won't drive as much as like, I have this problem and I'm looking for a solution, and your product or service can be that solution. But then you need to know how great that pain is. So is it, oh, it'd be nice to have, that's a different kind of pricing strategy because they're like, I could take it or leave it, versus, oh my gosh, this has been driving me crazy for 2 months. I got to find a solution. Your product or service can offer that. So I'm more willing to pay because it is kind of a need that I have got to solve this problem versus, oh, it'd be kind of nice to have, but what I'm doing works, but maybe I'd look at that. That's your pricing there is not a strong driver when it's kind of like, oh, what I have works, but this could be a little bit better. But how much better am I willing? How much am I willing to pay for a little bit better versus, oh my gosh, I will pay. And as a consumer, think about when you've like, this is driving me crazy. I need to, and you're like searching for some solution. That's going to be a different kind of pricing driver for that type of customer. And then, and you always need to think about pricing from the consumer's perspective, not from your perspective. And in any market research, you always want to, we talk about voice of the customer. We always talk about looking at it from the customer side, not from our side. And the customer needs to believe they're getting their money's worth. They're getting the value. They see the value of the product or service. And we talk about people being, oh, people are cheap, they want to pay, but the problem is that they usually just don't see the value. So if I don't see much value in this, like paper towels, like, well, I'm not going to go buy a $30 roll of paper towels because I don't see the value in that. Maybe I'm just like, I just need to wipe up something off my counter. I don't, so paper towels and things like that are commodities, and they usually go for like the lowest price point, commodity pricing. You as a small business are not going to be the commodity. I'll just tell you that now, because you're going to not have the volumes or the budgets or the resources to compete at that low price point. But no matter where your pricing is, that customer has to value that price and see, and that goes into your marketing and your messaging. Sometimes your value may be there, but if you're not getting that message across to the customers and they don't see the value or understand the value or how it can help them, then they won't pay for it, even if it is worth that, because that disconnect is between what you're saying about the product and how the customer perceives the value of that product. And think about it from your side as a consumer. You're always evaluating, no matter anything you buy, you do a quick thing like, oh, is it worth that money? Is it worth that price? Okay, it is. Then you buy it. So even subconsciously, we're always, as a consumer, evaluating anything we purchase as, do I think it's worth that price? Okay, it is. Then I'll pay for it and buy. Um, if you ever do any kind of surveys or talk to consumers, here's a couple tips. Don't just ask, because you're going to talk about the product or service. You're going to say, you're going to kind of get a feel. You're not pitching the product or service. So don't just say, hey, you going to buy this? Because people are nice. And if you're right in front of them, they're going to say, well, of course I would. Because they're not going to tell you to your face, no, I wouldn't buy your product or service, because we're nice and there is no money on the table. They're not exchanging money at that time. So just don't talk about other things about, well, do you see the value in this? Or what do you think is the most important thing about this? Or, ask other questions than just, will you buy this? Um, the other thing is always follow up with some kind of pricing question. Now, whether it's, would you pay X? It could be, what do you think the price of this would be? What do you think the range of this would be? What do you expect? Or what are the other solutions that you implement today? What do you pay for those? So you're getting pricing ranges or getting pricing info about where that customer sees that it has anything to do with your cost, has nothing to do with your actual product or service, but it's where the customer is already kind of situating your product or service in the market based on other solutions. And we're going to talk a little bit about that, but just always think about, well, you know, in any interview or survey, you should say, what are the current solutions? What are you doing today to solve this problem? Okay. And then what what do you pay for that today? I mean, what's the cost of that to you? What have you spent to try to solve this problem? What would you be willing, what do you, what would you be willing to pay if they haven't solved it today, haven't found the right solution? What do you think a solution would cost? So those are kind of ways to get a pricing, kind of tease out some pricing from potential customers or existing customers without asking them, will you buy my product or service? Or would you pay X? You always want to let them tell you what they feel the price value is, or the price kind of range. Even they may say, oh, I think it's about $50 or whatever it is. So you kind of start dialing that in. Those are keys as you do pricing later on, where your customers are already. And it may be that this is not, then you might find out, well, they're only willing to pay 50 and your price ends up having to be 150. Okay, well, this is not the right target customer for me. I need to find a different one that's willing that sees the value, or it solves a different problem for them that they see it's worth 150. Pricing, just checking in. If there's any questions, again, put them in the chat, and we can answer them at the time or later. We're going to go on to costs. Oh my golly, costs can seem very, if for products, that's a little easier than for services, I'll say. But it still can be things that we miss a lot of things that should go into a cost. We just think, especially for products, you just get the cost to make the product, and you're like, that's my cost. Not exactly. But you have direct and indirect costs. So there's direct costs of actually producing or making the product or service. It's the actual delivery of the thing. It's like it costs me X for every widget I make, or for every, you know, service. Like it could, whatever you're delivering to the customer, there's a certain cost to that. And then there's variable and fixed costs. So variable costs, especially this is more with products. So variable costs are, like the name says, vary. So as you make more, your costs go up because you have to buy more raw goods, materials, components. So those, depending on what your volumes are, will go up and down, and your costs associated with that will go up and down. You might get, if I buy more raw goods, I might get a discount, but if I buy less, it might be a higher price. So those kind of vary depending on your volume. Fixed costs are costs that are like, it doesn't matter if I make one widget or 1,000 widgets, my cost is the same. So that could be something like your rent for a building, or for a space. And even for services, your rent or your lease is your lease, whether I make one or I make 1,000, or if I sell this service today, or I sell 4 different services tomorrow, my rent or lease is exactly the same. The other thing you have to think about cost is materials. So that's the cost of goods in producing your product or service. So that's kind of the things we kind of know those. Um, if it, especially for products, it's really easy. But think about in services, you're still having certain things. Like if you are a web developer, there's like your laptop and your internet and your different things that are kind of like cost of doing business. We're like, hey, I've got to capture those in, it's not just my hourly time, but it's like things that I use in my business to deliver this product or service. Again, you have labor, so that's your hourly wage, if it's salaries or benefits, if you have employees, if you don't. So, and then I always talk about you as the business owner there's profit that comes into your business, but you need to pay yourself a salary as like the CEO of the business. So many times in small businesses, we think the profit that comes in, you just pull out of that to pay yourself a salary. You should think of your role as CEO and attach a salary to that separate from the profit of the business. There's a great book called Profit First by Mike. His last name is like Michalowicz. It's like a strange name, but it's called Profit First. And it talks about, hey, you need to pull these things out of the profit of the business. And it's not just like, oh, well, the profit comes in and I just take some money for myself, as paying myself as the owner. It's like, no, 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 you need to pay yourself a wage. And then you should have, and then you know what is left over as the profit of your business. You also need to think about you as the owner of the business, especially a small business or a solopreneur, where you're doing all the jobs in the business. So you're the marketing person, and you're the salesperson, and you're the logistics person, and you're the supply chain. So think about all those roles, and if at some point, if you had to outsource them, what you would pay somebody. I know in the beginning we do everything, but as you build your business, or if you've been in business for a while, you may still be doing all these roles. But the problem is if you don't allocate those as labor, those jobs, then and factor in those jobs as if you had to pay somebody else, you'll never be able to pay somebody else to do that work. You'll always be kind of like, I don't know if I can hire a VA because I've been doing that work and now I have to have that salary, and I didn't price my products properly to count. I need a VA salary now to cover in my labor. So think about adding in those jobs. And if you had to outsource them, even if it's a part-time person or a couple hours a week, start thinking about building those jobs into your labor, into your costs. And then we have all the things like rent, taxes, insurance, depreciation. If you're especially a product business, you might have capital to make that product. Office supplies, utilities. These are things that we kind of think, oh, I pay X, I don't think about when I go and buy some paper for my, printer, or I have to buy a new printer, or I have, things like that. So think about, hopefully if you have a tax person, that they can help you with, oh, no, no, let's track that because you spent money, and we can depreciate that off your taxes. But you have to think about those, like kind of, especially things that are replacements. So like a laptop, you may buy it once, but X number of years, you're probably gonna have to upgrade. So you have to kind of factor in like, well, I need to be able to buy another laptop in 5 years from now or whatever. So kind of thinking through, how do I build that cost in across not just 1 year, but maybe I need to be able to allocate part of my cost for those kind of equipment or capital expenses. And then there's a whole, depending on your business, there's a whole host of other kind of costs. I know this is like, oh my God, what? But there's maybe packaging and shipping, and don't forget about marketing. And even if you don't have a dollar amount for some of these, you can have a percentage. Just say, okay, I don't know about marketing spend, but maybe it's 5% of sales. It should be my marketing budget. So add in that into your cost. Because again, your product or service cost have to cover all of these things. These should not be coming out of your profit. These should be things that come as part of your cost of doing business. It could, and think about training, or if you do it, if you have to continually kind of upskill or go to conferences, if you print anything, if you go to trade shows, all those things. So when we talk about our pricing, our cost structure, I always have like, there's kind of like the hard cost, especially for products. So like it's the delivering the product, it's making the product or delivering the service. There's some hard cost to that. But then you have to add on all these kind of other costs on top of it to make sure that you're building that full cost picture for your product or service. And most people just think kind of like the hard, oh, it cost me X number in service, it's X number of hours, and I charge X number an hour, and that's my cost. Or for products, it's X number of components, raw good materials, to make the product, and then that's my cost. There's a many other things that need to layer on top of that kind of base cost to get your full cost for your product or service. The other one is to know your revenue target or your profit margin. So we're going to talk about revenue. People equate revenue and profit the same, but they're kind of different, and they have key differences to think about. So your industry probably has, so revenue is the total sales. So it's like you made $10,000 in sales a month or whatever that number is. That's your revenue target, and you should have a revenue target, because that means you know what your business does year over year or quarter over quarter. You can kind of see, are you growing that revenue number? Is it falling off somewhere, and you want to evaluate this for different products and services. So you may have different products, and each one needs to have this kind of revenue target, profit margin per product or per service if you offer different types of services. So you're not building one, you're looking at all of them. Even the one model works for all of your products or all of your services, but you need to evaluate each offering within your whole product or service business, to see what the revenue, if they're each one is profitable or not. Because you might have some products, we would do this all the time with products. I would have some that were making, or making a good profit, and some were not. And or some things, there's a lot product life cycle, and as they were like, they may make great profit and then they kind of start to die off. Well, when they're starting to die off, then my profits start getting squeezed, people aren't paying, or my costs start going up. And I need to know, hey, I need to launch a new product, because that one's kind of at the end of its life cycle. It's dying both in revenue and it's not driving any more profit, something else. Or if services, you may find a service that you're offering and you end up spending more time to deliver it than what you priced it at. Like, okay, then you need to think that's not a very profitable service. So it may be generating good revenue, but you got to look at that profit number. That's why you need true costs to know what's my real profit for that specific product or service offering. Your industry probably has, like, there's different industries will have kind of general profit margins. So I know like the restaurant industry, the profit margins are dismal. Like they're in like the single digits. Our good restaurant profit margin is like, but that's just the industry. It's the way the model works. There's a lot of waste. There's a lot of things that, there's a lot of cost in there, and it's a high volume business. So if you don't get the turns, I mean, that's why that's why so many restaurants go out of business. The profit margins just are super thin. So you need to know that going into the restaurant business, that your profit margins are like very, very tight. Again, that's why we need to make sure we're covering all the costs in our business to understand every bit of cost, so we know that we're pricing things based on at least on a true cost basis, as the foundation, as opposed to like not realizing our true costs. And then whoop, we think we're going to make this much profit. And then all of a sudden, why am I only making this little tiny bit? Because my costs are higher and they're coming in. I wasn't capturing that in my profit or in my pricing. And again, you might be able to evaluate categories or segments or look at each individual product or service offering in your business. You can't just say all my services or all my products should have this, or all like aggregate them together, because what you'll do is your high performing ones will start masking your lower performing ones. And you need to see the lower performing ones and how to either adjust it, address it, revise it, or delete it. I mean, like, or get deleted, kick it to the curb. Like, we'll talk about killing products and services that are not profitable. Oh, here we go. So also need to look at this profit and revenue profit margin per customer. So ideally it'd be per customer, but at least if nothing else, depending on how many customers you have, your top ones. So you need to know like, hey, or look at your bottom, what's your bottom 10% or your top 10%. So you can kind of see, it's the 80-20 rule. Michelle and I were just talking about this before. There'll be 20% of your customers are driving 80% of your business. And so you need to look at who are those 20% and what are they buying? What's driving the profit? What's not selling? Um, I've had customers where they were big revenue, but we lost money because of their return policies or because of other things that their time that they took to maintain that customer on the service side. You're not capturing. It's the reworks and it's I'm adding this in for this service, and we'll talk about scope creep. And so eventually that customer that may look great is not profitable because they're just sucking time from you, even if they're not, if it's not a product-based business. So you have got to figure out how to turn those customers around to make them profitable or get rid of them, because you can't have a customer that is costing you money. They may be great revenue, but if they're costing you more to deliver or they're not profitable, then it's just dragging down your business and you're taking that time away servicing them that's not profitable versus putting more money or more time and effort on the customers that are profitable for you. And then many times you always need to look through your whole product portfolio and kill and get rid of those products or services that are no longer profitable. It may have been great 5 years ago. Maybe it just needs to be revamped and relaunched. It may be a direction that you're not, you need to change. You're not going that way anymore for your business. Or maybe early customers, but as you've changed your business, you don't really do that kind of work anymore. But because they started with you in the beginning, you feel like you want to stay loyal to them. I mean, there's many reasons why we kind of have these non-profitable products or services. It may have been the very first product you launched when you started your business, and it's like the one it's your darling and your baby in the beginning, like, but if it's not profitable anymore and you can't figure out how to relaunch it or make it profitable again or update it or change it or whatever your customer needs today, you got to get rid of those because they're just dragging down. People think, well, the more products and services I offer, the better it is, right? Because I'm giving more choice, and they're not. So if it's dividing your time and it's not profitable and it's splitting your resources, or it's a customer base you no longer need to serve, or it's not the direction you're going, we evolve over time as people and as businesses. And so it's totally fine to kind of get rid of products and services that are no longer applicable to your business or not profitable, or maybe you kill those and you launch a new one in its place that is more in line, that is profitable. So again, just because you kill one doesn't mean you can't launch a new updated version of that product or service. The other one's last one, I think this is kind of before we go into the break a little bit. Oh, we got a little time, is to know your competition. So many times if and I'm not saying you're copying them, but you need to know, and when I say competition, I mean, what solutions are your customers using today to solve their problem that your product or service is trying to solve? You need to know what it could be a variety. It won't be necessarily a company that looks exactly like you or a direct competitor. It might be something adjacent. It might be something they're cobbling together to try to make it work. That's why you need to do that market research. What are they doing today to try to solve this problem? And so you're going to build that competitive matrix. Um, and sometimes the competition I was talking about could be doing nothing. If the pain's not great enough for them to try to find a solution, they may go, yeah, it's kind of, yeah, it's a little annoying, but it's fine. Then the competition is nothing at that point, which is a very difficult competitor to have if they're like, if the pain is not enough for that person to try to solve that problem, that means they're not going to pay any money to solve it. So that's why you have to go like, maybe nothing is the competitor. But you have competition. I, it's always a red flag whenever I hear a small business owner, and this is not on anybody specific, but a lot of times, especially when they're starting up and they're just, they're trying to launch, they're thinking about launching a business, they go, well, there's nobody in the market that is my thing. I'm like, no, there's always something in the market that is solving whatever problem. No, I would like to say we're all, I've worked with a colleague and he used to call his products like jokingly that they were all little snowflakes. Everyone's unique and everyone's special and every product. And no, there are other snowflakes out there in the market. Whether they're exactly like yours should be differentiated. You should have some uniqueness about your product or service, but there are other products or services trying to solve that same problem. Not exactly the same way you're doing it, but there's ones that, because consumers are looking, there's a research that says like, I think it's like 80% or more consumers are searching online. They're looking for solutions before they ever purchase, before they ever talk to anybody. They're searching for a solution. So you need to know what they're searching for and how, because in their mind they're already going to compare you even when they find you, they're going to compare to what they've already been looking for. So you need to know what's out there so you can do that comparison yourself. And I would look at your competitor pricing. Sometimes you can find pricing on the internet, sometimes they can't, sometimes, but most, we'll talk about whether you should publish your pricing or not, but many times, but products, it's way easier. Every product is going to have a price online. Services are a little tougher where some people will publish their pricing, some people won't. Some people might have a range, like, oh, this package is between X and X. So at least you kind of start building out your product matrix. And we call it like a product comparison matrix, where you're literally going to have like the product listed and you're going to have like you're going to like the product listed, competitors, features and benefits. So you kind of know what they're offering, not offering, and then the price for each of those kind of products or services in comparison to yours. What I will say, especially with products or even with services, I'll say this too. I'm going to tell you, you need to get net pricing, not list price. So in products, if you go on Amazon, how many times have you seen list price being $100 and then you'll see this discounted price or this special price or whatever, or cars, automobiles are horrible at this. They have the MSRP, which is manufacturer suggested retail price, which is really just like a list price. And then you'll see, but your price today is X. No one pays the list price. No one's paying that higher price. There's a theory called price anchoring, and we'll talk about this in later on, but it's by anchoring at that higher price, but then they're really paying this discounted price. That's the regular price. That's the price you need to track, not the list price, because no one is paying the list price. It's a pricing strategy it's a behavioral science strategy for price anchoring, which we'll cover later. But again, look at net prices, look at the discounted price, look at the, you know, your price today, or if you sign up today, look at those kind of, or if they do, maybe you track the list price and then track a discount price as a separate one. So, well, they advertise this, but people are really paying this. So in the customer's mind, I'm paying this lower price. I'm not paying that higher price, but that higher price has a psychological impact for the customer, why people do it. But you as a business owner need to know the customer is actually paying this lower price all the time. And then you need to, when you build out this competitive matrix, you're going to list, hey, what are your points of differentiation? What are your additional value? What are the things that you are unique about your product or service that you've learned from your market research consumers will pay for, consumers value, your target customer wants. So those are the things that and then you're gonna have to kind of in your mind think, well, are they worth, are these extra things based on what you see in the market, your competitors, are these extra points of value differentiation worth X amount if your pricing is different than the competitors? Or you can show, these things cost more to deliver, but the customer values them enough to make them worth to put into the product, and they are willing to pay for those things. So you're going to put that in your matrix because you won't be exactly the same as competitors, but you need to make sure that those points of value or differentiation are meaningful points of value or differentiation for your target consumers. Like I said, you're gonna do a product comparison of features, benefits, value. There could be add-on services too, or support, things that are intangibles that are hard to put a price on. Like maybe their customer service is like super great, or maybe they really, and you can go into like the reviews and things, kind of see what people are saying to know if there's some intangibles about your competitors that like, oh, they're great, but then their execution after the sale is like horrible. Like people are always complaining, or they have like high returns, or people are always like, I called them and no one ever called me back. People are very vocal on social media, at least the negative ones. A lot of times you can find like if there's things customers are complaining about that are kind of the intangibles. It's hard to put a price on those, but those mean something because people again are looking at reviews. They're looking at the comments that people make in when they evaluate whether they purchase a product or service, especially services. They're gonna, because it's hard to like, is this person good, not good? Are they helpful? Are they just kind of a sham? Is this going to be beneficial to me? Look at testimonials. What are people saying about the product or service? Can kind of help you, because companies will get testimonials around specific key points they want to get across. So if they really pride on their customer service, their testimonials will be around customer service because they want to get across that intangible to the consumer. And so okay, that's something they hang their hat on, even if it's not a specific. And list that in your product comparison, because that's going to be something like, okay, but if they have really great customer service after the sale and people rave about that, or that helps them upsell to their current customer base and they won't want to leave to switch over to my product, those are all things to just have to know in your back of your mind about how you compare. Again, I've talked to consumers. When you're out there doing research, or if you're talking to somebody about solutions that they use today, ask them, well, what do you think about that? Have you tried this? What did you think when you tried it? What did you think it was a good value for the money? Did you, just kind of ask them those questions about how whatever solution they're using today or have used in the past. Why did you stop using it? Why did you switch to this one over here? Just kind of asking them those kind of questions without, again, not being pitchy. You're not selling your product or service, but you're just finding out like, why didn't that work for you? And what was the problem? And then seeing if your product or service can address that problem, because that'll be all into your marketing and your messaging about your products and services. All right. Question break. We're about right on time. Is there anything um in the
There are a couple things in
yeah,
the chat.
and please, if you
Charity
need
wants
it, sorry, if you need to take a drink, take a bathroom break, it's all good.
So Charity says, hi, I have a life coaching business
Mm.
and want to know the best way to find what customers are willing to pay.
So coaching is so there's many coaching associations. So look at your trade associations to see if they have any kind of what are the average pricing for coaching services. I would look at also other types of coaching services, not just life coaching, but it could be business coaching. It could be other things that kind of work in that coaching space. Coaching too will also have very different types of customers that you're looking for. So you need to know, are you looking for like executive life coaching at like a VP corporate, CEO level? Are you looking at maybe it's creatives and helping them with life in their coaching in their business, but they're at a different, or it's solopreneurs in business, kind of knowing who that target is. And then I would take that marketing research 101 that Cal offers, but then you can look and start looking for like, even if it's just basically on social media, like Facebook groups that are around that. Facebook groups are actually a really kind of nice untapped market research resource. Because there's a Facebook group for every kind of interest. So I'm sure there are one. And when you say life coaching, there could be very specific types of, I would say like different types of life coaching. Somebody may focus more on health and wellness life coaching, or somebody might focus on, a different aspect versus general. So if there's a niche within that, um, kind of looking for those people in those groups on Facebook, and you are not in there to pitch, you can just join and just start listening. Listen to the questions they ask, listen to like the types of issues that they're having, they're experiencing, because they're going to tell you where their pain points are. And then I would start researching other life coaches on their websites, if they list their pricing, if they list many times coaches will have packages, and we'll talk a little bit about that later about, you know, this package, and you can kind of, and they'll often will list pricing for there. And so then you can, and look at their messaging and marketing, and you'll get a feel for the customer they're targeting. You should anyway. Your marketing and messaging as a business should be very um should be very clear who you're trying to target, because I need to know that I'm not, if you're targeting executives, CEO for life coaching, and I come to you as a small business, I should realize that this is not, from your marketing and messaging, that you're not targeting me, that you're targeting a much different customer base. What else is there? Was that any of that helpful? And we're
And
gonna,
Carrie would like,
yeah, go ahead.
Charity says yes.
Okay, good.
Harry wants to know, how do you price a business operations consulting service
Mm.
that has no tangible, viable, immediate benefit, outcome, or result, only gaining knowledge, not an outcome?
Okay, so first of all, you're offering a consulting. So I look at other types of consulting businesses. That's it, because you're offering consulting. Um, I would really rephrase the fact that you're not offering any benefit. You're not offering, like, I'm not coming in and doing your operations business and I'm revamping everything. But think about your expertise as shortcutting the learning process for them. It's highlighting it's highlighting things that they don't know because of your expertise. You can say, hey, this is like a best practice here. Maybe there's work sheets or checklists or workbooks or things like that you can develop for them, as like, so you're offering your expertise as, and you should talk to your customers about why they even hired this type of, like, why would they even hire an operations consultant? So that's the first thing, is market research. But oftentimes it's like, hey, we need to make sure that we're not missing something. We need to have somebody come in and just look at the operations, because we're in this every day. We can't see the big picture from the outside. So could be selling strategy. So there are things that's intangible, but you're still offering, you have to take that intangible into a meaningful benefit. So it's like, hey, we find the holes in your operations. Like, we don't execute and plug those holes, but we can look at your operations plan, see where the gaps are, and give you a plan that you can execute. It could be, we look at your operations, and we can provide checklists, and we can help train your people on like on the best practices to do X or something like that. So there's things you're offering as expertise, but it needs to resonate with that customer of what they're looking for. So when they hire an operations person, what's their pain? My guess would be, when we've hired operations people, it's been like, hey, we're in this every day. We can't step out to see big picture. We can't step out to figure out, is this the best way to do this? We may have cobbled things together but there could be a much better process for this. So you're kind of selling the strategy processes, looking at the big picture, that kind of engagement, I would guess. So you're delivering a value. It's just not a physical one I hold in my hand, but think about it from the business perspective. What's their pain? What are you helping them with? Because they just can't do themselves. Why they would hire a operations or a business consultant or any kind of consultant, it would be applicable. Hope that helps.
Okay, Alan would like to know, I put on competitive athletic events in
Mm.
stadiums. Do I compare my seat prices with sports? Examples are soccer and football in a stadium. Other competitors are in the indoor arenas, such as hockey and basketball. Who do we need to compare ourselves to? Can
That's
we discuss
interesting.
details in more detail in private?
Um, first of all, I'd ask if you have a mentor today. Um, Usually you go through a score mentor and then they can contact me for like a one-on-one for like a deeper dive on pricing. Um, that's that's how we kind of want the mentors to be the main kind of, because I'm not available 24/7, like they're not 24/7, but they're more available than I am. So that's why we kind of go through that. So that's first thing is, do you have a mentor? Then we could schedule a deep dive. Athletic events. So not knowing exactly. So in my head, when you said athletic events, I was thinking like, um, I've done the Spartan races and the CrossFit competitions and kind of like one-off athletic events, or special athletic events, or it could be a weekend, like a volleyball clinic or some kind of a sports clinic for youth or something like that. So it, I would compare them to, depending what your athletic event is, other types of event, whether it's soccer or football or volleyball or whatever athletic event is. Um, I would look at just kind of the similar events to yours. Whether indoor, outdoor, I don't know. That only matter if like you had a cancellation and you had to refund people's money and that kind of stuff if it's an outdoor event and it rains. But I would kind of start looking at events similar to yours. Is it a week long or weekend? Is it whether it's the same sport or not? But maybe kind of looking at, because and then who your target customer is. So if it's youth, youth might have options of baseball or soccer or football or, so you might want to look at kind of of your similar events in those across the different sports. If it's adults, that's a little different. Again, they would have maybe have a different, because with youth, you're kind of also looking at the parents because the parents are paying the money, even it's for the youth, versus adults are like, maybe they work full time and you have to kind of look at events. You have to think about events that work with a working full-time adult schedule. Um, I think we'd have to go like more specifics on the event, but I don't know if that kind of helps get you started. But I would look at who your target customer is. What are they already buying today? Like what events are they already attending? And then compare your event to theirs. And then if yours is a one-off versus maybe it's a 6 week um like program or something. I'm not sure, or if it's a one-off weekend event.
No, he
I
says he
wouldn't.
plans on ongoing events, but his are
Okay.
unique and they
Okay.
trend to adults.
Okay. Um, I don't know that I would compare it to like a regular sports event, like if I'm doing a football game in a stadium, I have a very different pricing structure because I need butts and seats. I need it to fill the capacity of that stadium. Your event may not be, because there are many times a special event not is not going to fill a stadium, would be, um, but you can do different things to kind of get your costs down to rent that stadium, maybe, and then look at, but you might have a higher price because you're providing more high touch than if I just go to a football game or a soccer game. I'm just sitting there, I'm looking, watching the game and I leave. But if you're providing more of kind of coaching and, or the different kind of competitions or different levels, but you're just using a stadium, but you're providing a different kind of event, then you can also negotiate probably differently with that stadium, the cost structure to rent it. Um, But I would look at maybe it's going to be more personal, maybe higher touch, maybe more tailored to that specific audience. Again, if it's more tailored, then usually you can charge more for things if you're personalizing it to that target. And if you can add any kind of whatever your uniqueness is, might be something you have to make sure that it's something they value and what they're willing to pay for that.
Alan says he's had several mentors come and go.
Uh, Michelle, maybe you can talk about that. I know we've had a pretty steady mentors, but we've had some, over time retire or not, have to other family or health issues to, deal with and not be a mentor. But I would kind of maybe restart. I'm not sure who the last mentor was, if you still have their contact, or maybe just go into the SCORE national website and kind of re-sign up for a new mentor. Um, that would, Michelle, do you have any advice on that?
No, just that, just need to
Okay.
request a mentor. And in the comment section, um, say that they've come and gone.
Yeah.
So he has a number of other questions here. Alan, it just looks like you need a mentor that you can go because you're not detailed enough for Sandy to really address exactly, what you're talking about. So that would be my recommendation. And then, as Sandy said, your mentor can request her as a subject matter expert, and you can have a one-on-one that way.
Yeah, we can definitely deep dive then. And the mentor might be able to help you with some stuff too. Like they have a good general business knowledge about a lot of different areas. If it's outside of pricing, they can probably help you with some other stuff too. And I would look at the other workshops like Cal's Market Research 101. There's a financial, like knowing your numbers in business kind of workshops. There's a lot of different ones that are good ones out there too.
Okay. Let's see. That's all. That's it. Harry,
Okay,
thank you for helping with this question. And
excellent.
that's all we've got. That's all, folks.
All right. We're going to get into some pricing models. Whoop, whoop. Everybody's excited, right? So that was kind of, again, if you didn't have that kind of foundational work, it's really hard to look at these models if you don't really have dialed in who your customer is, your competitive landscape, um, kind of your cost structure. That's a huge one. So kind of all those things feed into now we're going to look at actually common models and we're going to look at some that are product specific, some that are service specific, some that are both. So these are kind of the different ones we're going to kind of cover here. And then we're going to kind of cover common mistakes that I see a lot about pricing and raising prices, publishing prices, and then a couple little bonus tips kind of be the next kind of bulk of the workshop. There should be another break in about an hour. So we just had the one. I just kept talking, answering questions, but feel free to take a break if you need to. But we'll probably break in about an hour again. Before we go into I think the pricing questions. So this first one is going to be for products. Again, you service people, be listening because you adding products onto your service business is a great way to add sales and add revenue and to your existing client base or to new customers that's showing more value. And we'll talk about kind of adding more perceived value for your target customers. So this one is, so I would say this is probably the most common one that I see. People do this in services too somehow, but you really see it in products a lot. Cost plus pricing. So you're going to go, oh, this widget costs X amount. I'm just going to stack on some profit margin on top, and that's my price. So it's cost plus some profit number that you've determined is correct, and you just add on to the top. So it's cost plus, and that's how you get to your price. never recommend this as a pricing strategy. It's so common because it's easy. It's easy to say it's cost plus 50%. And I hear it all the time. I still hear people doing it because one, it's like, oh, I'll just do cost plus 50% and that's my price. Oh, what? Okay, first of all, do you have the right cost? Do you have all the costs in there? Secondly, what's 50%? Why is it this profit is the one decided to be? I hear this all the time. It's cost plus 50, and that's my price. Well, based on what? I guess it's better than nothing. It's better than just saying, I'm throwing a price out there, but it really has a lot of it has some pros. It's very straightforward. It can be effective in the sense that if you pick the right profit margin, then okay, it should work. If your costs don't change much, you could be very consistent in that it could be very, if your costs are stable, like okay, then you just kind of keep chugging along if it seems to be working. But there's really a lot of issues with this kind of cost plus pricing. Um, it doesn't take into account market conditions or the perceived customer value. So if I just did cost plus, I might be underpricing things. You wouldn't know. You haven't done any competitive. You don't know if you're way undercharging or overcharging. Um, you don't have any idea what's out there in the market. You don't know. You don't even know if your customer actually. I've heard this before where people are like, wow, I would have paid way more for that because they really valued that service or product that you were offering. I'm like, well, I'll take it at the price you give me, but I was surprised it was that low. I've said that as a consumer. So it doesn't take into account what the perceived customer value is. And I always sort of joke, I think of like the king of this as much as I'm not an Apple person, I'm not an Apple person, but I will say, their perceived value for their products, their marketing and their branding and their all the money they spend on that and the perceived value is really high for their customer base. So, and I'm making up numbers generally, but it's close. So if that Apple iPhone costs $150 to make, yet they're turning around charging $1,000 for it. Well, if I did cost plus, I would take the 150, add 50% and charge, like I would be leaving money on the table if I was Apple because their perceived value for that product is way higher than what their actual cost plus would be. So I'm like, no, no, no. Of course, the more volume, the lower their costs go down, which just increases their profit. But I shouldn't lower my profit for that. That perceived value for that product is still the $1,000 or whatever that market price is. So sometimes people will go, oh, cost plus, and don't realize that value, and that's why we do that market research. You have to know your customer. What are their pain points? How painful is this to them, or how much they value this product or service? But that's why then you're not leaving money on the table because they really would have paid more. Again, we kind of get into a trap of, well, it only cost me this. Doesn't matter if that product is providing a bigger value to the consumer, then you need to be able to price it accordingly. And it's not gouging them. It's not like, well, I only paid 150, I shouldn't charge 1,000. The customer's happy. They see the value of that. Just because the actual cost doesn't come into that doesn't mean it's not a valuable product or service to that customer. The other thing I would say with cost plus is if you've already priced your products that way, okay. Sometimes it can be hard to change pricing, although I would suggest doing that, but we'll talk about how to do that. But maybe you can do things to bundle your products together to get a higher price point because you're adding more perceived value. So it's not costing you more to develop new products, but maybe you can take you see this a lot with like your Father's Day sales and your Mother's Day, things like that. They'll bundle 2 or 3 products together, charge a higher price because bundling them together, it has a higher perceived value. It's like, oh, I get this, and this. And they'll say, oh, the 3 things together, I will pay more for. So that's a way to kind of increase your price. I would also look at if you currently have a cost plus structure and you've gone through your costs and you realize, oh, maybe this is my pricing is too low. It's really hard to just arbitrarily like, oh, now it's $20 higher tomorrow versus today. But are there ways to like launch a new product that replaces the old product, but it's at the right price point, that it's at a higher price point, that again, adding a little more features to it. We always see these new and improved. We always say it's version 2.0. We would do that a lot with products, or, some products just like, it needs to be, the next updated, improved version. And I can raise my price because again, I'm adding more value in there, but I can add more perceived value as well to the consumer, and I can adjust that price point up where it should be, because yes, they're going to see more value, and it's new. Again, anytime you add new features into a product, it should always be ones that you've vetted with consumers that they will pay for. You don't just add features in to add stuff in there and it doesn't mean anything, because the consumers will quickly say, well, that doesn't mean anything. That's nice. I don't care. I'm not paying for that. So adding meaningful improvements to the product can then help you increase that price point. But see if you can bundle to help increase the price point for like a group of products, or see if you can about discontinuing the old and adding it and bringing in new products that have a higher perceived value to get that price point up. I just saw a question about products value and clients affordability. So that's where you have to know who your target customer is. Because many times we're selling products to the wrong customer. And so you have to align your product value with what the customer is perceiving as a value as well. Most often when we're mismatching, when we're trying to sell a luxury product to a commodity, I mean, this is extreme, but a luxury product to a commodity buyer. That's not your target customer. Your luxury product needs to be targeted, and your messaging, your marketing, everything around that needs to be at that luxury price or at that luxury customer, and not at that. But we end up, our messaging and our targeting seems to be at that at the wrong customer. That's why you need to do that kind of research. And I would say too, we'll talk a little, I think this is in later too, but sometimes you have a product that has all these features, and you as the developing the product think, oh my God, this is like the best thing ever. It has everything in there that they want. I know it. But your target customer is like, yeah, but I don't need some of that stuff. Then look at offering a defeatured product, taking some of the features out to get down to a price point that is matching this target, this customer that you're saying is more looking at affordability. So it might just be over featured for them. You could still have the higher one for that higher that like the different consumer that values those extra features. But we would often have and we'll talk this about tiered pricing and tiered products and services. So having a lower, you're not just dropping the price. Don't ever do that. But you are taking features out of the product to get it down to that lower price. So the consumer now says, oh, this lower one, I don't get all the things, but it's at a price point it has the essential things, but I don't get the extra things. And then maybe the extra things, the next tier and the next tier. So I would look at that too. But we're going to talk about tiered pricing later, and that'll be part of that strategy. The one I always suggest for products is market down pricing. So that's where you need that competitive landscape that you did earlier. You're going to look at what's out there in the market. Not exactly, again, you're going to have unique differentiations about your product, and you're going to have to put a value on those. But you're going to kind of look and see what's out there that customers are already buying to try to solve this problem. So it's that retail price, it's that market price. And then you're going to you're going to take that retail price, you're going to create a spreadsheet. I know, I love spreadsheets. So you're going to have that that price that you see out there in the market price. You're going to take off your target profit. So you're going to assign yourself, you're going to say, hey, I should be making X amount of profit on this specific product. And it could be, maybe different products have different target profits. You can, or maybe it's categories of profit or of products. So you might have products that do this type of thing, might have this profit margin target, and a different set of products over here that do something different might have you can have different margins. Again, you need to know why you have different target profits, but you can. And then that market price establishes what consumers are willing to pay. That's from your market research and from your competitive analysis. And then you're taking out your profit margin, and that identifies the target cost you need to hit. Because many times, if you do the cost up, you've put a bunch of costs into the product, you've added on a profit margin, and you put a price, but you may not, those costs you put in there may be full of features that you don't need, that people aren't willing to pay for. So if I go, here's the market, here's my target profit, what's my target cost that I need to be hitting? And you'll know if your costs are coming in way high or right on or even lower. Great. That's still, you don't lower your price. You still charge the same price that the market will bear, that the market pricing is set. But then you also, the biggest thing it'll identify for you if your costs are too high, which happens a lot. Well, it can be too high or too low in the sense of, if it's super low, then you think, well, maybe I'm not capturing all my costs. Then you go back and look at the cost structure just to make sure that you're capturing everything. But if it's too high, it'll quickly say, wow, I have put way more cost into this product than what the market consumers are willing to spend. So how do I do? So are there ways to get your costs down? Are there some things, like if you're first starting out, it might be high because your volumes are so low, but maybe you think, okay, but if I can sell X amount, I'll start getting price breaks on volumes, and that will bring my costs back in line. So you may have a smaller profit to start with, knowing that as you increase volume, but you better be tracking it, increase volume, your costs will start coming down and get more in line with your profit. More likely, you're putting things into the product that the consumer or the market isn't either valuing, or it's, again, not the right consumer, not the right target customer for what you're offering. So maybe it's a different customer that does appreciate the things, all the extra features you're putting in. Maybe it's, you have to de-feature it, like I just talked about. Maybe you take some, again, based on your market research, maybe you're like, okay, well, they're not willing to pay for these three things. So how do I take them out of the product to do a lower cost product, but that's more in line with what the market is in there. So those are all things you have to look at. But the market down it tells you, like, what's the market going to bear? And that's the big thing, because you can build the best product in the world, but if no one's going to buy it, it's not helpful. I mean, it's not going to help your business. So being realistic about what's out there in the market, and right or wrong, market pricing is set out there. Consumers are searching, consumers are looking, and they have to, if they're going to pay more for your product, they better really see why I'm paying more and I value that. So those are things to all think about when you're developing products, to go, am I right with where I'm going to be selling into the market? Oh, sorry, I went through all this stuff. So, the pros of the market price. So it works on that perceived customer value. So if I was Apple and I just went cost plus, but I'm like, no, it's $1,000. It may take me 150 to make it, but the market perceived value is at 1,000, and that's where I'm going to price it at, because that's the perceived market value, not where it's not anything internal. It's what the market will bear. And again, assures you're not leaving money on the table in case there is. And you may be thinking, maybe the price points are or the profit margins are much higher you you had thought for this industry. So that's a great thing. But then if you just said, oh, it should be X percentage, and then you realize, oh no, it's a bigger profit margin, great. Um, Again, it helps establish that cost target and prevent that cost creep. And I will say, especially with products, I love my engineers so much, but they tend to want to put, like, I can put this in here, and it can do this thing, and I can add this feature, and they have all these ideas. And you, as an inventor or product or solopreneur or a business owner, might have all these great ideas to put into a product. Fabulous. But again, customers have to be willing to pay for, or maybe it's different tiers of products for different targets of customers. Like some might be a little more price sensitive, some will see the perceived value and willing to pay more. So, but it helps you realize, I'm not just kind of keep adding costs. It's so easy to add costs into a product, and then not realize you're just eating your profit margin, as opposed to being improving your price point. And then again, establishes that competitive landscape. So it talks about, knowing what's in the market, because customers are going to compare you. Customers are going to look around and they're going to have to easily see why it's this one is this price and this one is this price, and what the differences are, and why, and do they care about those differences. The only thing that doesn't take into account is if it's those intangible kind of improvements to your product or benefits that you might have, that, like your points of differentiation, it may be a physical attribute, but it might also be, maybe it is customer service, maybe it is something else. And how do you get those kind of intangibles across to the consumer to know, hey, these are really things because we do have a high touch service or product, and we provide training, and we provide this, and we provide, us on the back end, we provide onboarding, and, depending on what your product is, those are things that are valuable for consumer, but it's hard to do that on the front end in just a price. So those are all part of your marketing and messaging to say, hey, these are things that we offer that is different or better, or or is worth value to you as a consumer, to make sure that you're starting off on the right foot with our products, that we provide a support network, whatever that is, that the competitors don't. Again, don't add features unless customers are going to pay for it. Don't over engineer it. That's like the key thing with products, is we tend to we want to put everything in there, everything they could ever want, everything that solves all the problems. But you may not need that. You may need that at the very top tier, but maybe you have other tiers of products that some customers don't need some of that extra in there. Again, and the customers, no matter what the price point of your product is, customers have to believe they're getting the money's worth, that it's the value. It can be a $10 product. I don't care. If I don't value that that's worth $10, I'm not buying it. Like, it doesn't matter if it's $1,000 or $10 or like, we talk about, people will pay money for the things that they value. Usually what happens is, if they don't perceive the value of the product, and it can just be a perception, it could be you not getting the message across, it might really be there in the product. If they don't, or you just might really just have a disconnect there. But if they don't value it, they will not spend the money. That's just, think about you as a consumer. If I don't think that's worth it, I'm not buying it. So it's just human nature and the way we are when you're a consumer, wearing your consumer hat versus your business hat. So I want to talk a little bit about products and distribution channels. Again, service people, keep listening, just in case you ever have a product someday. And this is going to be important, because especially if you offer a product to a service business, thinking about how you're going to sell that product will be just as important as a product-based business. So most distribution channels, a lot of times, especially small businesses, will start out the direct to consumer. And I'm making up numbers here, so I use the 50%, but whatever the market price is. But many times we start out direct to consumer. It's your e-commerce, it's your online store, it's your, that you're selling, you as the business is selling direct to the consumer or the end user, the person actually using the product that you have. So we're just going to make up numbers here. So say your cost is $50, you determined 50% profit was your profit, and then that gets you your consumer price. Everything is great. You put it on your website, you list it, blah, 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 your sales, great. The problem or the issue comes when you start looking at other distribution channels for your product, and you are selling direct to consumer, but then you think, wait a minute, what about if I sell to a retailer? So I have especially local, I have a local retailer, a shop that wants to stock my business or stock my product in their inventory. Great. It reaches more customers, different way for they can help you with marketing. So now you've got to think, well, wait a minute. I've sold directly to consumers. So I've established the consumer price, the market price. That's not changing, because I can't just all of a sudden like, oh, I'm going to increase my price because I'm selling to a retailer. No, because that retailer is selling to that same consumer. So you should always be partnering with retailers that are still at your target customers. So if you're selling direct to consumers, you've established that market retail price. That retailer is going to want to sell that same retail price to that consumer. So your costs aren't going to change, and now your consumer price isn't changing. essentially. That profit margin that you have now in the beginning, direct to consumer, is now going to be split between you and the retailer. Traditionally, retailers are going to want 20, 25%. Because they have their own staff, they have the overhead, they have marketing that they do. So there's costs that they have, maybe stocking your inventory. So there will be cost the retailer assumes, which is great but then they give you exposure to their customer base that you didn't have. So they're providing you a benefit too. So don't think about them just taking money from you. They have true costs and they have that customer base. Ideally, that's why you go with a retailer, because they already have a built-in customer base that should be buying your product. Great. So your profit now starts being split, which is fine. 25%, and then think of the other 25% as, their overhead costs and marketing for your products. Okay, great. So we're selling to retailers, but then usually at some point as you start getting bigger, you want to sell to wholesalers. Wholesalers or distributors, usually it's called wholesalers. You sell to the wholesaler. They aggregate a bunch of different manufacturers' products all in big warehouses. Retailers, especially small, especially mom and pops, will buy from the wholesaler because they get a better price than going straight to you as the manufacturer. And then they sell to the consumer. So you're adding links in this chain or stops in this chain between you and the consumer. Here's the thing. You said you have a cost. You have that consumer price that you've established in the market because you sold direct to consumer. Again, this chain adds people in, but it's that same target customer. So now that same cost and same consumer price, now that profit starts getting split up more and more between the retailer still going to take their percentage, the wholesaler is going to take a percentage, and then you as a profit will take as a business will take a much smaller percentage, which is actually wholesaling is your profit margins will be much less selling to a wholesaler because you have those extra links in the chain between you and the consumer, but the retailer's still doing the work. They still have the overhead, the sales teams, the floor, the retail shop, the marketing they're doing to their customer. The wholesaler has costs. They have sales teams. They stock your products in their DCs. They have sales teams that go out to retailers to sell products. They have shipping, they have logistics, all that stuff. So they do deserve a cut of the profit, and the retailer deserves a cut of the profit. Typically, again, it depends on the industry, but generally you're going to get about 20% to the retailer. 20 wholesalers going to want 20% as well, usually. 20, 25 depending, but then then that would mean of your 50% original profit, 10% comes to you, which, I mean, think about too, they're doing kind of the big lift of marketing, shipping, logistics, sales. So you're shifting those costs out to these other parties, but then that's where some of your profit goes as well. So when you think about, even if you're selling direct to consumers in the beginning, think about down the road, if I ever want to sell to a retailer, or if I even as I grow my business, maybe it's to a wholesaler, know that you've got the profit in place that can sustain those additional parties coming in the middle. So that's just more of a kind of a thinking ahead. Again, so many people will sell direct to consumer and have not built in or don't factor in that profit margin needed if I sell to a retailer or wholesale channels down the road. And then they're screwed because they have like 20% margin and they're splitting it, and they make like nothing to try to go to wholesale. But again, your volume should be bigger, so that might help with your cost structure. But in the beginning, it's going to be slow. Everything it takes time to kind of ramp up, and it just depends on, getting those sales kind of going. But many times with products, we sell to consumers and we don't plan down the road if I need to bring in a retail or wholesaler into the equation. So just a heads up on thinking about that down the road, or if you're in that today, if you take another step, like maybe you sell to a retail, but what if I did sell to a wholesaler? Do I have that profit in place? All right, so that was products, at least cost plus, and then market down, and then distribution. So we're going to go into services. So again, product people, listen to services, because many times with products, you can add on services on top of a product. Maybe it's a maintenance plan, maybe it's some kind of a like a support package, depending what your product is. It could be, I know like companies will, like what's the company that sells like your water heaters and, but they'll offer you a service plan that goes on top of that. So yes, they're selling you a water heater, but they're also selling you, oh, this maintenance plan that comes with it. And we come out and clean it and we do the checks every year, so there's things you can add on to a product business that might make sense from a service perspective, if it makes sense with your business. But for some of you that I think mentioned that you were kind of consultants, coaches, freelancers, all different kind of web developers or graphic designers. I mean, there's creative freelancers and there's kind of coaching, consulting, um, and there's professional services like lawyers and accountants. So those are also different types of service-based businesses. What I often see is service-based businesses that charge, the most common I see is hourly. You're saying, oh, I charge a flat rate per hour. And, whether that's $100 an hour or $600 an hour, you're charging some kind of flat rate per hour of time that you deliver the service. Like whether it's the consulting or it's the whatever. And then like any travel, usually it's charged separately. If you have to go somewhere to a location and that kind of stuff would be outside of your flat rate per hour. So that's what I call as a rate-based or hourly. Very common in services. There are some pros to that and there are some cons to it. The pros is technically you get paid for every hour of work. So you're saying, I spent 5 hours client on this project for you. I bill you for 5 hours of my time. You do need to keep detailed records of the work you perform, especially if you have multiple clients. You get to know, oh, I spent 3 hours with this one and 5 hours with this one and 15 minutes with this one, so you have to kind of you have to usually keep a really detailed log so you know what you're charging per client for your time. And it's very accepted in some industries. Like some industry would be very hard to like break out or try a different pricing model than the hourly. I think of, and this kind of kills me, lawyers, which you think they're very much like the legal field is very much locked into an hourly. Like they charge every 6 minutes of their time. I had a lawyer friend. I joke with him like, "Hey, I just need 6 minutes of your time. Like, what are you gonna charge me?" And he would joke like, "Stop it." But they get their timing down because they charge an hourly rate of like, and it'll be something crazy like literally like $800 an hour, but they'll break that down into like 6 minute increments and they'd have to track and log every 6 minutes. If I spend on a phone call with you for 6 minutes, boom. If I spend looking on the, looking up some case that was 15 minutes, boom. They micro time. And there's whole softwares that would support their logging and tracking their time. So that would be an issue. It's very hard to get out of that hourly rate. But there's a lot of cons with the hourly, and I really try and encourage service-based business to get out, to move from hourly to a different pricing model we'll talk about next, because you're trading your time for money. You're going to limit your growth. You only have so many hours in a day, and you can't do more than that. And that doesn't count for and you're only charging for the time that you're working on that client's project. How do you recoup your time that you spend doing sales and discovery calls and your marketing and your administrative tasks or just like your business operations? Like those are a lot of extra time that's not billable because it's not tied specifically to a customer or a client, yet it's still it's taking time out of your day. So you can't spend 8 hours a day on clients and then another 2 or 3 hours a day just doing business stuff. Like that's not sustainable. Um, so and it also doesn't factor in like those other indirect costs, those other things that you're doing to run your business that's not directly tied to a client's work. The other thing, and being on the other end of this, as a receiver of services that were hourly, clients could be surprised. when they get a sticker shock of what your hourly bill is. I had a web, a, well, development company, software development company, and they quoted X. But when I got the bill, it was like twice as much. I'm like, wait, hey, wait, where did these extra hours? Because it was like these extra hours. And they said, oh, well, we had to do this. And I'm like, well, you didn't tell me about these extra hours that you were spending. We needed to discuss that before. You just assumed I was going to pay you double the price, so that's that. Or the other thing too, and I think about this with Laura, is like, if you hear somebody's making $600 an hour, you're like, what? Who's worth $600 an hour? Like what? And so that sometimes the hourly rate, because you're capturing those other hours. So if you try to build in those other hours for like marketing and sales and your other and time into that, but I can only work 6 hours a day on client work, and then the other four or other three have to be on other stuff, but I've got to charge for those other 3 hours into those client works. It can make the hourly rate look high to the client, only because they're not understanding that you're building in the other business hours into your hourly rate that you're charging them, which is appropriate because you have to cover those, but it can be a sticker shock if I don't understand that as the client. The other problem with hourly is that the better you are, the faster you get, theoretically, the less money you'll make because you should do jobs quicker. And if I only charge per an hour, then it's like all of a sudden, like, well, I can get this done in 4 hours that you should take me 6. I'm going to get paid less for being better. That seems like what? That makes no sense because I'm faster and so I'm more efficient, but I shouldn't get paid less for having more expertise or more knowledge or more efficiency in my process. And then the other thing, and that's a big problem, I think, is it commoditizes your knowledge work. So it starts reducing everything you do down to an hourly rate and to like some number and they'll start comparing, well, your hourly rate is this and somebody else is this. Like, yeah, but I've got 20 hours of experience in this area and they have 2 years. Like my hourly rate is going to be hard, but they're going to it starts doing that commodity of like, well, you're all graphic designers, so shouldn't you all be charging the same rate? Like, no, we shouldn't be. Um, so it commoditizes your expertise and knowledge as a service-based business, and it doesn't help you differentiate. Like it doesn't, it's like, well, we're all the same, right? We're all graphic designers, or we're all web developers, or we're all life coaches. So shouldn't we all be charging the same rate? And why would you be 600 and they're 200 or whatever? So it starts commoditizing your value that you bring to the relationship with the client. So I always suggest, if you're on hourly today, to look at ways that we can try moving you off of hourly, or if you're on hourly, like really talk to clients about what all's encompassed in that hourly, because or try to raise your hourly rate, but explaining why that is, as opposed to just, because then if you just do I'm going to double my hourly rate, whoa, everybody's gonna go, what? So you have to kind of build that into your current customer base, or what I suggest is see if you can move to project based. So I really recommend this for services. Again, it's a flat fee for this project, because most consultants or, contractors, or, there's a specific project they're working on, or it's a specific time period, or it's an engagement that's going to last X, or it's X number. Like it might be a coaching, it's X number of you get X per month, and here's the flat fee for my monthly coaching service, or whatever, however you've done it, set it up. But it's a flat fee. You're not saying, well, I'm going to charge you every hour we spend together, or every hour I work on your project, that hourly rate. The key thing is that you're going to charge them a flat fee for this project or the engagement or the monthly, whatever your service, the monthly fee, or whatever it is. On the backside, you're still going to you're still going to calculate hours it takes, because you still need to make sure that whatever your flat fee is makes sense, that you're not spending too many hours behind the scenes. Like, I think of a web developer where you may think, oh, it's going to take me about 10 hours to do this website. Well, you still need to track those hours, but I'm going to offer a flat fee. But you need to track those hours on the back end to know, oh, wow, this really took me 12 hours to do this and not 10. So the next time I quote a customer, I know I need to add in extra to count that it's really taking me 12 hours of time. So you're still doing the things on the back end to know that but you don't ever line item that out to the client. You just say it's a flat fee of, I'm making up numbers, $5,000 to redo this website. Here's the deliverables. Here's what I'm going to do. Here's the timeline, blah, blah, blah. Here's the fee. You don't need to know it takes me 10 hours or 15 hours or 2 hours on the back end, because the value of, again, that's where you're pricing it on the value of the project. Redoing this website is worth X dollars. If I'm good and I'm fast and I can get it done quicker, great. That's because I've spent years and years and years honing my skills. But the value of the thing I'm delivering, the project, the deliverable that you're going to get is still worth X, whether I'm faster at it or not. It's still that same value to the client. So it incentivizes you that if you can get things done quicker, high quality without having to redo things, or, going, all that stuff is just going to be great. If you get faster, better, more experienced at your skills, the value is still the same to the client. You're just getting better. It's like reducing your cost in the back end. You're just getting better at it, but you're still the same value you're delivering. So that same price is still worth it. It's gonna, and it builds that into the price of that. And then you don't have to talk about, well, how many hours, or what's this, or why are you charging me for this and not this? And are you sure, and tracking, like, all the kind of back end line item stuff. It's just like, it's a flat fee. And it's easier for the client because they can budget. It's $5,000. Great. Um, Now I know I don't, and I'm not guessing, well, how many hours is it going to take to finish? And they gave me an estimate, but they run over and double it. And then I don't know. And, like, so it's kind of like, it helps the client with their budgeting as well, and to know, here's my cost on the client side. Here's the key thing about project-based. You need to have a clear project timeline with key milestones. You're going to say, here's the flat fee. It's going to be 6 months, or it's month to month, or whatever it's going to be this kind of engagement for this long. And here are the key points along the way. And here's your deliverable at the end. It's going to be very, very clear on writing out a scope of work and writing out the timeline to go with that scope of work. So you know what you're delivering it, when you're delivering it, and here's the price for that. And you need to have a clear end date, because what happens with that one negative of project based is that if you don't have an end date of, like, here's my clear end, because it's project, so it's month to month, or even it's a clear, like, timeline and clear, like, end date. So then everything's completed, boom. And so there's not like this kind of lingering, well, I'm still working on it, still working on it, still working on it. And then all of a sudden you're like, I'm not getting paid anymore for it, but I'm putting more time in it. And it's like it's kind of like a moving target on the end of the deliverable and date. So you have to have that all agreed to in the scope of work and the timeline up front when they sign the contract with you and you should have a contract, but when they sign the contract with you to start work. And you should also have in the contract that you'll, like, until the contract is signed, that's when the clock starts ticking. Not when you first had a discovery call 2 months ago. It's like, okay, when the contract is signed, boom, that's when my timeline starts. That's when the work starts. I'm not doing any work ahead of time. I mean, you're doing work just to kind of, be able to create the scope and kind of doing but you're not doing any, like, real work on the project until the contract is signed and you get some money in your hand. So, um, the other thing with a project base, well-defined scope of work, you should include pricing adjustments or negotiation. Like, if the customer then comes back and says they're working through the project and halfway through, they're like, hey, I really would like if this website now integrated with Shopify. I want to add an e-commerce thing online. And that wasn't part of the original scope. You're like, great. You don't add that in because that's outside of the scope. That's a big thing, is scope creep with project. And because you're working and they just think, well, you can just do this one little thing for me, right? Or you can just add this little chat bot in here. You can just add this to my website. And you can, if it's a tiny little thing and you want to maintain a good relationship, that's your call. But most things are like, seem small, but they're going to be like, oh, that's a bit of work to do. You're like, great. that's outside of the scope of work for this project, but I would love to give you a quote, and we totally can bring that chat bot into the web development, and I'll get you a new quote for that work. It's not being included in the current project. So you're like, love to do it. Here's a new quote for it, and here's a timeline, here's scope of work. Boom. And you sign a new contract for that additional work. So the other thing with project base is you get some money up front. You don't start any work until you get some money in hand. Whether that's some people will do, I want all the money up front. Some will do a partial payment at the beginning and then maybe another payment halfway through. You put that in the contract that you're going to get paid. You're going to invoice here because when you invoice, you're always going to have terms on their net 30. Companies will try to push out the net, like they'll try to push out paying 60, 90 days. But if you put net 30 and they change it, you have to decide whether you agree to a longer term. So think about when you invoice them, they're not even paying you for 30 days or 60 days or 90 days, which I'd say never do 90, but net 30, I've seen net 15 saying, hey, you know, so you are getting that money. You're not waiting, especially if it's like a 3-month project. You don't wait 2 months to get your money on net 60 days. Like, no. It might be a net 15. Maybe if it's a 6-month project, maybe do a net 30. So you need to put, you get some, I would, if you can, get all the money up front because you're going to do all the work. If not, get at least half up front and then halfway through at some key milestone, you can invoice the remaining for the payment. I would recommend not waiting to the very end to get the second half of the payment, but I would get at least partway through. Again, that's still your call as a business. That's just the recommendation. The other good thing is that this project based, you might be able to then, after the end of it, if it's successful, to negotiate a transition to like a retainer fee or some kind of a maintenance plan or some kind of like ongoing like X amount of like time, like to like make, and I think website probably the easiest, but like maybe it's, then you do the maintenance and updates to the website every month for additional X amount per month. Like it's a different contract, but it's more like a retainer fee. Or if you're a coaching business, like maybe you have an intense coaching program for the first 6 months. And then after that, it's more like, hey, we have regular check-ins once a month. And it's like a retainer, and I bill you X amount a month, but it's kind of like, and we check in once a month just to see how you're doing or something. It's not as intense as the primary coaching program, but maybe it's I see that a lot like small group coaching. You have a small little cohort, but then maybe people need some kind of accountability, a little bit of touch points afterwards just to kind of check-ins. Then you can offer that kind of as a retainer or um, like monthly fee afterwards. That may not be as big as the original coaching. And then if they're running into troubles again, they can always say, hey, let's put back in another intense coaching session with more touch points, more accountability or whatever that is, and do like a 3-month engagement of more intensity. So that the retainer is nice because it keeps you engaged with that client. And then if opportunities come up, you're going to be top of mind to be like, hey, so-and-so is already on retainer. Why don't we just have them work on this project for us? Or, hey, I need more help now. I already have regular touch points with you, so I don't forget about you. Like it's not a one and done, but then it goes like, I'm already talking to them. Let's just like keep working with them or increase what we're doing with that um person as opposed to trying to find somebody new. Or like, oh, I haven't talked to them in 6 months. So now I guess I'll just go find anybody, like, no, you're already in their network and in their kind of top of mind within when they need help again, that you'll be the first that they call versus going out and searching for it again. I do say you still need to track your hours. You're just not going to put any hours on an invoice to a client, but still track them on the backside because you need to make sure that you've assessed the scope accurately, that you're estimating, that you're pricing it appropriately. Like, it is costing you X amount of hours, or there's additional equipment costs you didn't need, or software packages. Like, okay, I didn't realize I would have to buy this, access to this pack software that my client uses. I need to know that in the future. I may not be able, I recoup it now, but tracking it means that next time I quote somebody, I'll know, hey, do you have a special software that I have to have access to? And what is that fee per month? Stuff like that. So it helps you just know how to quote better in the future, as well as understanding if you're not quoting things correctly and you need to kind of adjust on future quotes. All right, so this is going for services. This is retainers. So I just talked a little bit about it, but retainers, if you can move this, so you might not have like a project base, but maybe it's, especially like with coaching, I think can be more retainer pricing where you're offering a set amount of availability of your time, or it may be call, one-on-one calls, or it may be small group coaching, or it may be, you know, some service that you're offering kind of on a fixed monthly fee usually. It's better suited for services that have like long term kind of periods with clients. So I think of coaching really good with retainers in the sense of there's usually going to be a long-term engagement. It's not you might have a small group coaching program, but then you want to have like regular ongoing interactions with the client, can be a retainer pricing. Lawyers, legal fee or legal accounting, maybe you have like a retainer, like somebody on your you can talk to about accounting tax things throughout the year, but maybe it's not paying per month. Maybe you just pay a retainer fee for just access to their, you know, knowledge that I can call them up at any time and ask them. So there's different services that might be able to offer a retainer. But you still, with that retainer, you need to be very clear about what you're offering and the time that you're allocating and what the scope is. So if you're going to offer a retainer where you can call and text me 24/7 at any time, that retainer price better be darn high, because if you're going to give them that kind of access to you. But if it's a retainer where we touch base once a week, we have a set call, whether they get on the call or need you or not, doesn't matter. It's that we have a set call once a week and the price is X a month because you're getting me one-on-one for an hour, one time a week or two times a week or one time a month. And you would price it accordingly to kind of that, how much time, it's still time based, but it's how much that you're interacting with that client. So that kind of determines what your retainer price would be, just depending how much or how little that client needs in support. Or it might be like service contracts for keeping your website updated. So you would go through and say, okay, we go through and check all your plugins every month. We update any software. We have, once a month, just check in on, and you have like 10 hours of emergency, oh my God, my website crashed, fix it now, kind of a thing. So something like that could be, but you still limit the scope. And if they go above those support hours, then you charge accordingly. If they don't use the 10 hours, fine. They still are paying for them, whether they use them or not. Sometimes customers, that peace of mind of knowing they can call somebody is valuable, even if they don't actually use that time, but knowing I could call somebody if I am, like, oh my God, something bad just happened. I can call you and you can fix it for me, is worth money, even if I never actually use it. The great thing about retainer pricing is it's steady, predictable, it's recurring cash flow. So we always talk about cash is king in a business, and cash flow. So knowing that money is kind of regularly coming in, you're not having to hunt for new clients all the time, that you have this kind of steady base of recurring money is great in a business. If there's ways that you can profitably do retainer pricing, we always recommend that as having a kind of recurring base. It also maintains your relationship with clients, and it actually will lead to increased client retention because you're having kind of constant little touch points, even if it's not intense. It's just that kind of constant touch point I just mentioned about being top of mind, or when they really need you, you're always going to be in their network and in their mind as far as a resource, and not like, oh, they did a project for me like a year ago, and who was that did that? And or I don't know, maybe I just go search again for, I need some more done. And I don't remember who that was, or like they're not like, you kind of, they get, not say you get forgotten, but they're busy. And so you want to but having like even a once a month kind of a little touch point with that client is good to kind of like, oh, I've already got a relationship with them. They're already doing some work on this. They can just do this new project for me. Great. And then you'll know the client's businesses better. And so you can provide more kind of personalized and solutions, and you can be proactive. So if you see stuff every month when you're touching with them, you're like, hey, I kind of see this, we could go deeper in this coaching in this area because I see this kind of coming up as an issue in your business. So you can offer a more personalized, like, hey, let's increase this for a short time to kind of address this one issue. You could start being more proactive with your clients about recommending solutions, not trying to sell them stuff, but understanding their business better. You can say, hey, I kind of see this, just want to put this out as something you might want to start thinking about down the road. Here we can help you with that when the time is right. But again, you're seen more as a partner as opposed to just a vendor. And so being kind of retainer can help you be more proactive and be more like, I'm helping you with your business as opposed to I'm just transactional vendor providing a service. The other thing with retainer, though, is you potentially have higher client expectations. So if they think you're on retainer, that means they think they can just call you at any time and you should answer. And like, why aren't you answering me in 5 minutes? Because you're on retainer. I'm paying you money every month, right? So why don't you just why aren't you answering when I call you in the middle at 10 o'clock at night? Whatever. So just kind of setting those expectations of like, yes, you're on a retainer, but you're not unlimited, availability. The potentials for scope creep. So they may go, well, I'm paying you, so can you just do this other little thing for me? Or can you just do this? That's you set out a scope, but they'll just kind of ask you for like, well, I just need this little favor done. Can you do that? And that's your decision as a business, whether you do it or not. It might just be something a little tiny and small, like I just need this setting changed on the website. Okay, I might go do that. But that can lead to like, hey, can you just integrate my Shopify with this? Like, whoa, that's a whole bigger deal. Like, so just be very clear that you don't just start doing favors for the client outside of whatever the retainer contract says. You do want to support their business and be a good partner, but you also have to be cognizant and making sure you're not and they don't mean they're not intentionally trying to do it, but they just like, hey, I'll just get him to do it. It'll be fine. And they may not be realizing how much time something takes. And if you aren't clear with them on, okay, that's going to be a big project, bigger than you think. It's not as simple as just flipping a switch. Then they need to understand that, and understand that truly is a new contract and scope of work. The other thing is sometimes retainers, you can have one big client that has a retainer and it's a big bulk of your business, and you kind of get like all your eggs in that basket. And then if they switch or go away or go out of business or switch to somebody else, you're kind of screwed because you've kind of put everything in there. So retainer is good, but you always want to make sure that you're not relying too heavily on one client versus kind of spreading. You still need to be developing other clients. You still need to be developing your whole product or service portfolio. Even if you have kind of one large retainer client, you still need to think about, hey, if they go away tomorrow, is my business okay and going to survive? Or do I have other things in the sales pipeline that can be replacing that client or augment that one big client? All right, so that is retainer. So we're going to go flip back to products on subscription pricing. Let's see, we're kind of a little behind time, but we can either take a break now or keep going up. We can add people or ask if anybody, I think I've got maybe just, I'm trying to see what I have next. I think I may just have like one or two more slides, but these are kind of meaty subjects. Let me pull this up real quick. Oh yeah, I can't see. So do you guys want to take a quick break or do you want to keep going? Michelle, any votes?
Haven't seen anything yet.
Break.
Break. Yeah.
All right, we'll take a few minute break and then we'll go into the other ones. We'll hit subscription pricing next.
Great.
I'm trying to think if I'm close to a break or not. I'm trying. I don't have. usually print out the things ahead of time so I know when I'm coming up to it. Let me just get out of this for a second. Oh, I only have, well, I have two more, this slide, another slide, and then a break, but that's fine. We can break now and just kind of continue rolling through.
Okay.
All right, so we'll just take a 5-minute break. So it's 11:05. We'll go to like say 11:10, but I'm going to be here. So if you want to stay on and ask questions, I'm happy to stay here.
If you want, there's a couple in chat and Q&A if you want to address those.
Yeah, let's do it.
Sandy, could you handle the rest of the session?
Yeah,
And I can
sure.
log off. Excellent.
Yes. As long as people bear with me. I'm going back through. Let me scroll back through the chat. Okay, don't see it maybe in the chat. Or in the Q&A then, Michelle?
Yeah, there's a couple in Q&A. Let me see.
Oh, let me stop sharing because I had the chat window open. Let me open up the Q&A real quick. Oh, I didn't mean to
Yeah,
do that.
I think you addressed the other ones in the chat.
Okay, let me drag my Q&A box. All right, now can you see my slides again, Michelle, or not?
No.
Okay. Share. Okay, now you should see. All right, hang on, let
There
me
you go.
switch my settings. Okay. All right, now we're good?
There you go.
Okay, cool. And I got the Q&A open over here. So let me go into that. Hmm, that's weird. Now my chat window is gone.
Oh, no.
That's all right. The Q&A. Oh, how many hours in a year do you think can actually be considered as billable hours? I don't know about in a year, but I always think about in like in a week's time. So in my head, that's the smaller units to when I think of projects, I kind of usually think about, and my guess is that you're probably, it's like the 80/20. So I would think you're going to spend probably 6 hours doing real client work and the other 2 to 3 hours in a day doing, uh, you should be doing sales, you should be doing outreach, you should be doing discovery calls, you should be doing marketing, you should be doing market research. You have to do your business, just like operations and paying the bills and invoicing, and all that kind of admin stuff. So that's going to be kind of my general, you're going to probably, I say 6 hours if you had really set client work. It would really be not, and assuming you're not working, 12 or 14-hour days, because no one can do that. You might have to at sometimes like to in a crunch mode or maybe for a short period of time, but in general, think about 80% of your time. And we used to do this as well, where you don't want to ever load up 100% of your time. So you need to always have a buffer in there. So say of your available hours in a week, like you only load up like only factor 90%. That 10% extra is just like unexpected stuff, or somebody gets sick, or you have to take kid to a doctor appointment, or you need to run just an errand and stuff like, just things come up, or like, okay, this thing happens, I have to take an afternoon off or something. And oh, and in your 1 year, you have to think of 2 weeks of vacation or however many weeks of vacation. So back that out of your calculations too. But just you don't ever want to load yourself at 100%. You need to load, we always say 80%, more likely it's probably going to be 90%. So then use that of hours available and then break down your 80/20 with those available hours. So don't that's what I would kind of suggest for, and then you can build that up to a month, a year, or over a project, but you're going to spend more. And then what I would suggest, Harry, is track your time. Take a week or 2 weeks and just start writing down everything you do, how much, and it doesn't have to be to the minute, but okay, I just spent 15 minutes doing this. I spent an hour doing this. I spent client work for 3 hours. I took lunch for an hour. You know, start tracking, doing a time tracker, even if it's just a piece of paper that you have sitting next to your computer or wherever you work. You'll be amazed at what you see, and where your time goes. And that'll be a true test of like you and your business. Like maybe it's only really 4 or 5 hours. I know some creative people like are writers, and they couldn't they couldn't write for 6 hours if they wanted to, because their brains just can't take that kind of intensity for creativity. So they get up in the morning, they may do for 2 hours, then they may take a break, do other business stuff, and come back and maybe do 2 hours. So they may only be able to do 4 hours in a day of truly work, whatever the work is in their business. So I would sit down and track your hours for a week to see. For the same project work scope, should the project fee be less than the hourly fee for 10 hours of work? So your project fee is whatever the market's going to bear for the project. You're only tracking hours in the back end to make sure that you aren't like you in your mind, you have an hourly rate of what you think because you can figure your hourly rate is like, again, tracking, I have X number of hours in a business that can focus on client work, whether that's 6 hours a day or 4 hours a day, whatever it is. And I want to make X amount of money. Here's my revenue target. Well, if I'm only working 6 hours a day and I want to make X amount in a week or over a month, then you can do simple math to kind of say, well, I have to be charging at least X number per hour. Okay, so in your back end, you still have kind of an hourly rate, but when you charge the project fee, that's where you're going to say, look at what the market is for that type of project. It's $5,000 for a website. Great, whatever. It may take me 10 hours to do it, and I charge to make my monthly income that I want. I would need to work, or weekly income, however you break it out, and factor in your income. You have to pay your taxes, and you have to pay your health insurance, and you have to pay all the benefits that you don't get, that you might get if you worked as an employee, versus you have to pay those things as a business owner or as a self-employed person. So all that has to factor into your revenue or the income that you want to make. And then you can start backing in like, okay, if it only takes me 10 hours to do the website and I charge $200 and my internal hourly fee is $200, then okay. The project for the website is 5,000. Like, okay, I'm covering my costs anyway. So at least the only thing about tracking hours on the backside for a project is to know if you start spending way more hours on something than you thought it was going to be, and you need to adjust your price accordingly. Like, oh wow, these types of website development ones are way more work if I had to integrate an e-commerce versus just a regular business website. So then you realize, okay, I thought it was going to take me 12 hours to finish. It's taking me 20 hours. I need to adjust my project fee accordingly because I know I'm spending way more time on the back end. That's the hourly fee for project work is just internal, just so you know you're not spending more time than you think you are, because that's that cost creep. But it happens with products, or it happens with services, where if you're not kind of tracking that cost, it can start getting out of control, and then you start eating into your profit margins because you don't realize things are taking you longer than you thought they were going to. Or certain things might just be, okay, if a project involves this extra type of thing, then I need to make sure that takes a lot more time than I thought it did. Could the project-based pricing be used in healthcare settings? How it would be handled? Oh, okay. Healthcare, you got regulations and a lot of other weird stuff on healthcare. So you have to be careful about promising results. And so I'm thinking maybe it's like a PT, like a physical therapy, maybe if they didn't recover in the expected time frame. You you should never promise a result, because you never know in any healthcare. You say, here's our expected outcomes, but the patient or the person has to put in the work themselves too. If they aren't doing what they need to on their side, then that's going to affect their outcome and results. So what you can only, yeah, I would have to have that clear discussion with them front about expectations, saying, here's typically what we see if you do these things, and be very clear about what you are going to do and what you expect them to do to be on their recovery as part of their recovery. So you can say, I will help you in these areas. I can do this is the support. This is what I'm giving you, but I need you as to also be part of this recovery. And here's the things, expectations to get the best results possible, but you never guarantee. You can always say, hey, based on my experience of working with clients like this in the past, here's kind of the recovery path. Here's the timeline. Also, you have to be very clear about you're not going to be up in, whatever it is, like maybe in a week's time. It might be a 6-month time frame. Be very clear on expectations, what you're going to do and what you expect them to do. Because then if they say, well, I didn't get the results I wanted, I'm like, well, and you lay out a contract and you lay out expectations of your expectations and their expectations for what you expect from them so it's a partnership to get to the end goal, and say, be very clear that nothing is guaranteed, but these are the things that will get you the best results possible, by doing all these kind of steps. And then you can go back and say, well, I told you you needed to do these 10 steps, and based on our check-ins and your recording and tracking, you didn't do 5 of the 10 steps. So that's going to affect your recovery. Or I told you it's going to be a 4 to 6 month time. You're not going to be recovered in a month's time. So expectations are very clear up front, and then getting those kind of things in writing of what you are going to provide and that you deliver on the things you say, and then what you kind of expect them to also contribute to the recovery. Sorry, I don't know if that helped. Business owner at times increasingly limited, but keep going down these deep rabbit holes, trying to do everything myself. Yep. Trying to learn Google search, Google tags. Yes. Yes. We, as small business owners, you're wearing all the hats and doing all the things, and you're trying to learn it all. What I always suggest, and I know it's difficult in the beginning because you may not have the money or the resources yet, or it's really hard to like pay money for something if you don't have all the income coming in yet. But when we start thinking about, think about in your business, what do you like to do? What are you good at? And what is really in your wheelhouse? What is your zone of expertise? We always kind of say, what are the things that you are the uniquely qualified to deliver in your business? What is your like genius area, zone of genius? And that the things that you like to, there's things that I can do really well. I don't enjoy them. I can do them really well. I can execute. That's fine. They're like, yeah, okay, I can do that. And there's other things I just hate doing altogether. So we always kind of suggest, what are the things that you hate doing, like altogether? Those are kind of the first things to look at outsourcing. And then over time, because or there's some things that are just like, there's no way I can do my own, like I want to outsource accounting and taxes because, dear God, do not make me figure out business taxes. I will pay an accountant. That's what they do. That's their zone of expertise, and not mine. I don't need to spend my time learning tax law and business accounting. No, I can put things into my QuickBooks or to wherever my software is. That's great. And then they can handle on the backside. So think about things. Do you need to learn Google search? Do you need to learn Google Console? Or is your time spent better? Is that something you really want to do, enjoy, maybe it's part of your business and you need to learn it? Or is it something where I can go to Upwork, or what's the other one? There's like um freelance consult, they can just do 2 hours a week or something. You don't have to pay a full time, but you pay somebody like, I just need you to set up my Google Analytics for me, and I pay somebody a couple hours or whatever the time frame is, or it's like, hey, set up in Google Analytics, I pay them a flat fee and they go and do it for me. Like, do I need to learn that? I don't know. It's you have to answer that for your business. But think about ways, getting others to help you. If it's like, is the time you're spending learning Google Console or Google Analytics worth it. Yes, you should be able to go in there and like see stuff and do like, oh, I see where people are coming from and like look at it, but do you need to set it up? Do you need somebody else just to set everything up and you just go in there and they can show you like, here are the key things. I set up your dashboards for you. This is what you want to see. Sweet. And I can go in there and I can look at my dashboards to see where the key metrics I'm looking for, but do I need to know how to set it up? I I wouldn't. I'd go get somebody to do it for me and then just show me, set up my dashboard like I want, to my specifications, and then, you know, go in there and look at the numbers, but do I need to learn it? So I don't know if that helps you at all or not, Robert. So let's get back on time. I think that's all the questions in the so in the future, maybe put the questions in the Q&A because I have that window open over here. I don't know where the chat went. Don't know. But if I can find the chat later, maybe. Oh, wait. I think I have like multiple screens open and things are moving around on me. Oh, I found the chat. All right, we're good. So you can put them in the chat or the Q&A. And I'll try checking it. All right. So let's go back to subscription pricing. So this is another great one for, again, products. It's kind of like retainer, but for products. So I think a subscription is like they're paying for, it's all those everyone probably has subscriptions, right? It's what I think somebody just mentioned about the apps that we have, and you pay X amount a month to subscribe to Netflix, that subscription, or you get those Bark boxes where they send you a product box, like once a month with all the like little sample things and all the little fun things for your dog or cat. Those are subscription services. If there's a way that you can bundle your product or offer some kind of a subscription pricing, that's the retainers or the service subscription price, and then subscription pricing is the product side of that same kind of two sides of that same coin. Again, they're paying for a set, it's usually monthly, and it's recurring revenue, which is great if you can do that for your business. It may be offering a little more, like you have a product today, maybe it is offering a subscription in form of a retainer, like a service component onto a product business, or maybe they'll do it with the products itself to offer that. And I know we don't think of Netflix, but Netflix movies are products. So they're a tangible thing that gets delivered digitally, but they're still products. So that's why Netflix is in subscription, because even though I don't feel like I'm getting a physical thing, you really are getting a physical thing in the form of a digital content. Again, same thing with retainers. They're predictable recurring revenue. Again, you give that nice kind of foundation base of like money kind of coming always in the door. It's great for customer retention because again, people usually sign up for a subscription. They just kind of keep going as long as everything is good, whether they use it, don't use it, they still see the value of maybe I don't use it much this month, but I'll use it next month, or maybe some of the products in this kit this month's aren't great, but maybe next month's will be really good. So again, it just keeps you top of mind with your customers and keeping that customer engagement. So if you don't have a big offering all the time, or it's not it's a way for them kind of always be kind of mindful of your products and be engaged with your company and your brand. For products, it's a little easier management because I'm putting this set amount of products in the subscription box. So you kind of know ahead of time, here's the things I'm buying. You know what the cost needs to be for the things you're putting in there so because the price for the subscription is set. And so you kind of know, like, I need to keep my cost for these items going in the box at a certain point, or I need to keep, my cost down in line here because my subscription price is X. And doesn't mean you can't raise the subscription price over time, but in general, people kind of usually get grandfathered in at a certain price, and then, your price increases will be at different points with certain notifications, and you're going to get people drop off when you do a price increase, but we all know that prices go up on things over time too. As long as it's not a huge jump, then small increments usually don't drop. Some people will drop off, but usually it shouldn't be a huge drop. You can do subscription pricing. You can do like a flat rate a month. You could do tiered. You might have different, like I'm sure there's different ones you subscribe to where they're like different access or have different levels. And you might have different tiers of kind of subscription, like you pay this a month for this, you pay this a month for this, and this a month for this. So there's different ways. I've seen some usage based. That's usually more like software, where I've seen where you use X amount of of not like, it's like the cloud storage. So I think of like Dropbox or somebody where you may pay X amount for a terabyte of storage, but you pay more if you need more storage. So those are, you pay every month, but it's based on how much you're using of the service. And then some are per user license. Like that's really software. So it's a seat or a license. So if it's Salesforce will have like you pay per every license or every user that's going to access the platform. So some, I think HubSpot might be the same way, where it's your tier or your pricing subscriptions is you get X number of users at this tier and you get X number of users at this tier and X number at the higher tier. So those are all ways to kind of do different types of subscription pricing for products. Tiered pricing, this can be for products or services, and I think this is a really great one. We touched on a little bit earlier, but I'm going to kind of go a little deeper into tiering you a product offering. That's where you see like good, better, best, or you'll see bundles and packages. Like you'll see, especially with services, products are pretty easy. You can say, here's your entry price. If you haven't need like I talked earlier about a D-featured one, maybe that's like a lower tier. And then you have a more fully featured product. And then you might have one with all the bells and whistles. Like you may have 3 tiers within the same product family, but you stretch that instead of just having one product, because you have different target customers that are a little more price sensitive, or some that like, I just need the essentials. I don't need all the bells and whistles. But some like, you know what? I need all the bells and whistles. I need everything. So you want to offer different product tiers depending on those customers. It's still the same kind of product. So like it can still all be the product, but you just offer different feature sets on top of it for different customers. Services are another way to do that. It really gives they call it productizing services, which I like the name, but then if you're not a product person, you're probably like, what? So it's taking those services, instead of being one-offs all the time or bespoke or customized, it's productizing that service business. So you're taking your service offerings and putting them into these tiers. So it streamlines it for you, instead of having to like recreate like every single, it's a one-off, 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 or it's cut. Everything is like a custom, like it's got to get a discovery call and I create a custom program just for you, blah, blah, blah. If you can think about taking your services and putting them into these kind of product tiers, or like bundles, or however your packages, however you want to call it. I think of it as like your kind of product portfolio. And if there's ways you can kind of, because it's going to save you time, if you can kind of have these buckets for customers, then they kind of know where they fit. And you're not like having to make everything customized over, because that just takes time. It also, having these tiers lets you test pricing. So we'll talk about like, you may think it's the art and the science, but this is the art part. Like, well, you may have dialed in where you think the pricing needs to be, but you can have different tiers and kind of test like, will people buy that higher end one if I put all the bells and whistles in? Or are they buying the mid tier? Are they buying the, like, okay, so you can kind of start looking at where people are buying, and to know, well, if no one's really buying this and they're buying too many of the low end ones, like, you can start shifting. Or maybe you realize people are buying this high end one and not so much the low end. Maybe I shift my tiers, my pricing, and my product, my portfolio up, because I'm not targeting the entry point. I say low end is, that's a negative term. I shouldn't use that. It's like more, that entry, maybe it's a beginner buyer. Maybe my customers are all like at the higher end and not the beginners, or they need this kind of support and not this kind of support. So you can kind of start shifting your portfolio of products and services and kind of test different pricing, because you can price something today, you can turn around and have a different price tomorrow. It's not locked in stone. So especially on, don't feel like I just got to set a price, it's there forever and I can't change it. What I would say is that if you do tiered pricing with a product or services, you keep it to like 3 tiers. There's research done, again, if behavioral science is like so fascinating, especially business related, like applied to business, because we humans are so irrationally weird sometimes. But and once you start recognizing it, you start realizing how companies are using it, not in a manipulative way, but just a way to make it easier for consumers, or already taking advantage of what consumers are already doing and aligning with what they're expecting and doing. And there's studies that show three options. We as your your brain thinks that I should offer 20 options. I should have a multiple of options for customers so they can pick anything they want. Research shows that too many options just overwhelms consumers and they don't buy. They just like, I can't figure out. There's like 20 things at me. I have no idea what the difference. I can't. I'm just going to walk away. Like they just won't buy. It's just too overwhelming for consumers. And so research shows that three, maybe four, but three is like the sweet spot to offer tiers of like a progressive, entry, beginning, middle, advanced, or, good, better, best, or whatever it is. Like just kind of knowing that, three tiers makes the most sense. And for consumers, they feel like they're still getting choice and options, but it's more manageable and they can kind of clearly see, okay, the differentiation between like these tiers. So your bottom tier should be your entry level. We call it the MVP, or minimum viable product, whether it's a service or a business, or a service or a product. Your MVP is your either the minimal viable product, like it's the essential thing that gets the product done, or it's like the minimal investment of your time for a service business. So it's going to be like not your bare bones. It's still going to get them results. It's still going to offer a solution, but it's not going to have all the bells and whistles. It's going to be more kind of essential. Like it'll do the things, or it'll be what you need. Um, but it won't have, kind of the step ups to it. But it gets people in the door. And usually it's a little lower price point. So it kind of gets them, they feel like maybe they can kind of try before they buy. They kind of get a feel for how you are, whether it's a service or whether it's a product, like, is this really going to work or not for me? So it kind of gets them in the door. It's the ones that are a little more price sensitive, or they're just not quite sure yet. And it's a little lower barrier to entry by having that kind of entry level tier. It's not cheap. It's not low quality. It's just a little bit like defeatured, more essential, kind of basic, but it's not cheap and it's not low quality. You never want to have something out there that is going to reflect badly on your brand or your company. The middle tier is going to be typically your highest seller, should be your middle tier, only because people will look at the low end and go, that's the essentials, but I kind of need a little bit more than that. So they'll step up to that middle tier. So it's kind of like, so that lower tier, again, there's pricing theories, but that lower tier is like, it gives them kind of a base, but then they go, but I need a little more help, or a little more, you know, features, or a little more to the offering. And then I can see that clearly in that middle tier is that kind of top seller, kind of it's right in between. So it offers a little bit more than the base. I need a little bit more, but I may not need everything that high end top tier does. Your top tier should be your premium. It's that anchor. It's that price anchor saying, hey, I'm not leaving money on the table. I'm like giving you the full blown high touch, or all the bells and whistles. And what it does is it anchors people's minds to, like, I'm making up pricing, but say your lower tier is 250, your middle tier is 500, and your top tier is 1,000. Most people will buy the middle tier at 500, whatever I said. You'll have some buy at the 250 because they want to like kind of test you out. And you'll have some buy at that 1,000. So, but the people that buy the middle tier will see the high tier at 1,000, go, whoa, I don't need all the bells and whistles, but that's valued at 1,000. Doesn't this 500 in the middle look like a good deal? Because I don't need quite everything at that high end, but I get a lot of stuff in this middle. And look at the price. And in my head, I've anchored to that $1,000. And now I'm coming like, oh, I get a deal and I'm not discounting, because you're not discounting, you're defeaturing. So you offer less services or features in that middle tier. So it's clear that you're not getting everything in the top tier, but it'll give them a good value for that middle tier price. So and then you'll have people buy it, and then you're not leaving them on the table, because the people that want to spend in like the high tier, they can still buy the high tier and like, sweet, I'll capture you as well. Or if you start seeing, this is where that kind of the price testing of the pricing, if you see more people buying the top tier and the middle tier and a lot more at the top tier, obviously you need to then you can like drop that bottom tier, your middle tier shifts to the bottom, your top tier moves to the middle, then you even do another premium one on top of that. So you can start shifting your portfolio, because obviously your target customer is shifting to that top end, that whoever you're talking to is valuing this. And maybe you can even keep pushing that up, because you're obviously need to be here, your target customer is not on the entry level beginner type. Maybe you're more the experienced and advanced type of customer. So that's why I think tiered pricing is really powerful. And you see it a lot on products and services. So that was our question break. Oh, let's see. I think, I don't know about downloading the chat. I don't know if it comes with the recording afterward, if there's a download of the chat. Sorry if somebody else knows. Researching for spa business. What happens if you find it's not working and you test it? Yeah, that you're gonna be adjusting your pricing. Just because I put pricing out there today on a website, I can change it tomorrow. There's nothing that says I can't change it. So if you start seeing, again, if you start seeing more customers buying at that low end tier or middle, or like you should have most people buying at the middle. And then you have your high and low end will be buying. But if you start seeing something really shift, like one way or the other, then you need to figure out. What I would do is I would talk to those customers that bought, like if everybody's buying the low end, I would reach out to those customers and schedule a quick call to say, hey, why did you buy this versus this? Or what was driving the decision here, to figure out maybe you're offering a bunch of features that no one wants, like they're not willing to pay for, and they just say, no, I only need this essential thing. Then you got to shift your product portfolio or your service offering to like, okay, how do I increase the value, or what things do they value that I'm missing out on? That's where you should get feedback, like, well, what would be more valuable to you as a customer? Like, oh, well, I really wish you had, I'm making up for a spa business, I wish you had doggy spa. Like, okay, maybe maybe you can't do it, but maybe there's things that you like, okay, I need to shift my business because they're valuing these things, but they're not valuing obviously what I'm putting in my product offering or my services. So I got to shift to what they are wanting me to offer and what they're willing to buy. Because if they're not, there's a disconnect between what you're offering in your tiers or what you're offering in your services versus what they're paying for. You got to figure out what the disconnect is. Either they don't see the value, or they don't value the value, or they're just not the right target customer. They only want this and they don't need this. So you got to figure out where the disconnect is. Let's see. Fiverr, that was the other one. It's like Upwork, Fiverr, and there's like a different one I was trying to think of. Um, freelance. Wait, no, Upwork changed to Odesk. I can't remember. They change and merge names all the time, but there are uh contractors out there on different sites. Um, so the subscriptions for a monthly puzzle coloring. Oh, cool. Puzzle magazine. Interesting. So I think of a magazine being a subscription base anyway, because you're providing, I assume providing a magazine every month. So could the contest be like an add-on to the magazine subscription? Can you bundle the things together? Um, and subscriptions are everywhere because they work. And you have to think about it from your subscriptions are easy for consumers. Again, think of from the consumer. We may be sick of them. There's a lot of things I'm sick of as a marketing person. Like, oh my God, like those annoying pop-ups on a website that like Pop, before you leave, buy this thing or sign up for this thing or get on my newsletter. I hate those things, but doggone it, research shows they work. So marketing keeps using them. But I think, and my marketing brain's like, but they work. People like, you'll get people like, it's proven. But yet my consumers like, I hate those things. I hate those pop-ups. So, um, so I would look at, so we may think subscriptions are like overrated and everyone's got one, and I can't do one more, like no one's going to buy another subscription, but consumers are still buying them. Again, think about and target your existing client base, or customers with your magazine subscription. Say, hey, would you be open to this? Do you think this is valuable? Would you like to see this? Like, get their feedback on, oh, I would love to have like a subscription, like another thing that gets added on to my magazine subscription, for a couple extra, whatever the extra fee is for that. You have some people that won't, but then if you don't ask, you don't know. And we can make assumptions sometimes based on what we do and don't like, versus what our consumers or our customers are actually like okay with, or they find things convenient that I'm like, like for me, I'm like, I do not want another app on my phone. Oh my God, like what do I? But I just saw research, the average person has 80 apps on their phone. Obviously, people are using them and it's convenient. So we may think apps are like, don't give me another one, but our customers may think, that's another app. It's a subscription. It's great. I like having the small monthly fee versus big annual fee payment. Just people are different. Um, some monthly. Oh, how fun. Okay. Again, so I would just, yeah, talk to your current customers, and see the value of the monthly subscription for the puzzle, um, coloring puzzle thing. I probably didn't say that right. Versus, you know, the, people just love subscriptions. They still do. Hopefully that answered your question, Robert. Scroll back over. I know we're kind of running up on time. Um, let me go back over to, there it is, my other screen. So it's going to kind of run through quickly some common mistakes. And I will say the most common mistake I see people doing is underpricing. I will almost guarantee you that you're underpricing your products or services. It's like I'd say the 80/20. This is like 80% of people are underpricing. We do it. There's a many number of reasons why we do it. One's like imposter syndrome, meaning we don't think like, oh, no one's really going to pay this for this, right? Or it's so easy for us because we do it. It's our expertise. It's our, right in our wheelhouse, and we love it. But it's a struggle. We don't realize that other people are struggling with it, but we think it's so easy. Like, no one's going to pay for this. How many times have you said like, oh, no one's going to pay for this because everyone knows how to do this, right? Nope, they don't. Um, you have expertise and you spent years honing a craft or a skill or knowledge, and you're helping other people, but you think it's not valued because you think, oh, well, if everyone knows that, right? No. um the other thing is you're underestimating your true cost. So I think that's another big one why we don't realize, like I said earlier, the cost of everything in our to be factored into the cost of our products or services. And you're like, oh, wait a minute, and then you realize later, like, I have revenue of 10,000 a month coming in. You think I'm great, but then you go, wait a minute, all my costs end up being 11,000 a month. Like, whoa, that's not good. So, or your costs come in at 9,000, and you're like, wait a minute, I just made $1,000 in the whole a month. Like, that's not sustainable. So, we underestimate the cost to the price. The other thing we do is, golly, discounts and sales can kill us in the sense of like we feel like we always have to be offering, it's this Labor Day sale and this thing. And you can train your customers just to be buying on sales because they know you're having one all the time. I know some that literally, it's some competitors I had in the past, like he's like, why even, no one buys a full price because there's a sale every single month. There's a sale on something. Like, you train your customers to wait and just buy on the sale, because when you have a sale or a discount all the time, you in your customer's mind, you just set that price point down at that lower price. They don't, because if you're having a constant discounts and you're always having a sale, that you've taken that anchor of that price point, you've dropped it. They're now thinking that this discounted price is the price. Doesn't matter what you said. They'll, when you constantly have a sale and you constantly have discounts, they're going to go, oh, they obviously, this other price is not real because they're constantly discounting it down. And the discount is the real price of the product, or service. The other thing I see a lot with underpricing is, you think you are going to undercut the competition. So people will go in at a low price, and they'll think, oh, I'll get market share, I'll get like traction, I'll get this stuff. And then, or I'll have like big volumes, and that'll make up for my, um, low price because my costs aren't going down. My costs are still there. I'm just discounting it down to try to take market share. The problem is that you're leaving money on the table. But the other thing is that, it's so hard for a small business to do that. If I'm a giant, huge company that has a lot of resources, I can take the hit for a month or two if I need to like try to. I'll see big companies do that because they're trying to, kick out a competitor, and they'll go in if somebody's trying to come into their territory, they'll drop the price down to drive that other competitor out of the market because the other smaller guy can't sustain that lower price. But they can take a hit for a couple months and then increase it back up. Um, but my bigger concern, and you as a small business are never going to be able to do that. My bigger concern for small business is that when you underprice, that your customers will start valuing that your product or service as cheap or undervalued. They're going to start saying, oh, well, obviously the value is down here and not where it should be. And you think I'm going to increase those prices later on. You're not. It's so hard. You've set the market or expectations for your customers, your target customers, to be at that lower price point. And to raise your price, you're gonna have to add more value in to get it up, even if it should have been up there, originally. So by going in at a lower price and then thinking you're going to just arbitrarily increase it down the road without any other kind of value add or anything else, is really, really difficult to do. And when I've in the customer's mind, how many times have you bought something and you're like, wow, that was cheaper than I expected? So first, I think something wrong with it. Is it cheap? Is the construction going to be shoddy? Is it really not going to be that great of a service? Because that was way cheaper than I thought. And then, or two is like, oh, well, it meets this is great for this price. Well, this must be the price that is really the price for this product or service because it met all my expectations and it was at this price. So that's where I'm going to buy it in the future and if you just try to arbitrarily raise it without any explanation or any kind of, um, additional value, it's going to be harder to raise that price later. So key things to try to not be underpricing is that's why you need to look at the competition. That's why we go back to that foundation in the beginning in the competitive matrix. And you need to constantly be doing that. That's not a one and done. That's like whether depending on how much your market industry moves or changes. I mean, right now with tariffs, I'd be doing that thing like regularly. During COVID with all the shipping issues, we were looking at, literally costs were changing it seemed like every day, but every couple of weeks, every month, we were looking at our pricing and increasing prices because it was so volatile. Right now with tariffs, are they in, out, adding, those costs in? You need to be kind of looking at those costs if you, especially with products that, you're getting from anywhere or even domestic things. There could be things with services things that you're using in your business might have increased cost, just the, capital and like equipment that you're using. So you have to look at what's out there in the competition and how volatile the market is. And you do that product matrix, that competitive matrix. You should be doing that, if not at the minimum every year. You should be looking at that. But again, if a real volatile market, I'd do it every 2 times a year. Uh, More than once a quarter, I don't think you need to do that, unless you're in a real volatile time. Like right now, you might be doing that, but you have to be looking at that regularly. Your pricing should make you slightly uncomfortable. And I usually tell anybody, whatever your price is today, you can probably you should add 10 to 20% on the next time. Like, so especially with services, it's a little easier because you can say, the next time you quote somebody, you add 10% on, add 20%. You're probably, you'll find that pushback where they go, I don't know. Then you go, okay, that's where you've kind of hit that, maybe like this, well, I don't say the ceiling, but with that offering, but then you maybe offer something different that has more value and you can increase that price up. But whatever, my guess is that whatever you're charging today, really look at that to see, and talk to your current customers to find out what was the price? How did you feel about that? Was it a good price? Do you think it's worth the value? Like, see what they're saying about your pricing today. Um, and then, like I said, there's nothing that says you can't, or for products, if you would increase price, like you can discontinue the old product and kind of launch a new one in that has a little more features, again, meaningful features, benefits to they always have to have a benefit to the customer. And then you can increase your prices there. It's a little, services are probably a little easier to add. Um, and like I said, if you have a price on a website, doesn't mean you can't go change it tomorrow. Add 10%, like you can test prices if you see, then look at sales if they start dropping, and you can kind of adjust back down, but you've got to kind of keep always testing the market with your pricing. It's never a set it and forget it, unfortunately. Um, or look at ways to bundle things together to increase the price up for a group of products or services. So kind of it's very, this is the art of the pricing. Um, and then again, you should always think about raising prices. If you offer, like I said, products over time have a product life cycle, you're always discontinuing and launching a new product, and you're going to usually have a higher price point on the new products because you're making improvements to the product based on customer feedback. For services, think about, yeah, just because I have my pricing now doesn't mean it's going to stay that. Your time increases with value every year. So why shouldn't your packages, your services do the same? The other thing I would look at is just, again, always in that competitive matrix and just kind of monitoring, and then talking to your existing customers to see what do they value. Before you launch any new product or service, you should get feedback from your customers and say, hey, what do you want to see? What would you wish we did that we don't do today? What's is there anything missing from, you wish we had in our line? Is there, they're going to give you the feedback of where you need to launch your next product or service. And then if you have like a retainer or subscription pricing, or if you do any kind of contracts, then you should put in there, say, hey, on an annual basis or whatever the contract is, will, price increase, like build it into your contract. If it's like a year over year subscription, like build it in, because cost of living goes up every year. So build in a 5% cost increase because your cost of living goes up. So why wouldn't your prices, you shouldn't be doing the same prices you were 5 years ago, or God forbid, 10 years ago. But, 5 years to now, the economy's changed and costs have changed, and your pricing should be reflective of the current status, not from, and you can talk to customers. We'll talk a little about raising prices to existing customers and on strategies for that. But again, think through, you shouldn't be making today the same thing you were making 5 years ago. Um, Overpricing, we'll cover this a little bit, not too much of a problem, not as much. Usually I see overpricing when you've overestimated that perceived value to the consumer. Like you thought all the bells and whistles need to be in there, and so you priced it accordingly with all the bells and whistles. And then in reality, consumers don't need all the bells and whistles. So they're like, no, 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 that's so that in that the price is too high because you've over engineered or over featured the product or service. So that means you just need to kind of back down and say, hey, but maybe they don't need all the bells and whistles and you need to do it, or you offer a different product or service that's at that different price point where you can, where those customers need. And maybe, just because you want that feature or service or product feature or service in your packages doesn't mean consumers are the same way. So always think about it with what the consumer wants and the voice of the customer, not what you as the business owner want to see in there. The other thing you might be overpricing is a lot of times if you're in a commodity market. So usually small businesses, not so much, but sometimes we get into markets and you're selling something that's really, it's the paper towels market where I don't care what the greatest paper towel you could have in the world, it's seen as a commodity product to most consumers. They might pay a little more, but there's really just not much in there to price up on a paper towel. So if you're pricing a service or a product into a commodity market, then you know that you're going to struggle. You're going to probably be too high priced, and people are going to go, I'll just buy the basic thing because it works and it's fine, and there's no reason to go that higher price because you just won't have the cost position to have a cost that can compete on a commodity. Commodity pricing is high volume, low cost because they're churning out volume like millions of units. Like it's a really high turnover, really high consumable, like paper towels are consumables. People have to use them up, buy them, use them up, buy them, use them up. So it's a high turn, high volume. You might be overpriced just again, if you don't do that competitive analysis and how you're positioning your products and services compared to competitors, you might your messaging and marketing might be targeted to the wrong customer, or you might just not be positioning it correctly versus competitors. So you may look like you're overpriced because you're not getting across the actual value of your product. So you should research competitors, talk about that. Revisit your cost structure. You should always be looking at costs. I say look at the competitive analysis in the market on pricing, but also look at your costs. You should always be evaluating that your cost structure hasn't changed. And then looking at it always from the customer's perspective, not what you want to sell or what you think is good in there. It's what do they value, what do they want, and what will they pay for? And then talk to, if you can, like lost customers or why you didn't get business. If you quoted a job, a project, and you didn't get it, call the person up and just say, hey, can I just ask why you picked the other one? You're not trying to like yell at them or blame them or they made a choice, but you're just saying, hey, to help me understand how I can do this better next time. So come at it from that mindset. And then I'm really not here to yell at you about why you picked the other guy, but I just want to know what we didn't do or what was missing in our proposal or that you went with the other guy. And most people are willing to tell you, like I've been on the other side and I'll tell you why I picked so and so. It may have nothing to do with your pricing. It may have been like the VP's best buddies with their person over there in the business and they just got it. But you just have to kind of know if there was something that was missing or in your proposal, you need to get that feedback so you can address it going forward with the next quote. Raising prices. So you need to build it into your plan. So again, products a little easier. As you add new features, you should always have features that have a benefit for the customer, which if it's increased benefit to the consumers, they should understand that's again going to be a higher price. You want to listen to customers because they're going to tell you what you need to add. They're going to say, wow, does it do this? I wish it did this. Or, oh, wait, if it had this in there, or man, I have this problem. Does it solve that? Like those are all signals. You should be constantly talking to your existing customers and getting feedback on what they like, don't like, what they wish they had, or what's the next thing like, wow, this is great, but if I could get this, ooh, that's like gold for what you should add to your product line. Again, making sure customers will pay for those added features. Don't you put anything in there that someone's not willing to pay for just because you think it's a great idea. No, doesn't matter. It's what the customer thinks and what they value. And then you have to make sure you get across that value benefit to the consumer so they understand. You could put it in there, but if you don't communicate that correctly to the consumer, they're never going to get it and they won't understand the value and why they should pay more. They're just going to go, why is it a higher price? I don't understand. And I've done that so many times on product websites. Like I can't figure out the differences between these products, but this one's higher than this one. Don't have any idea why. Whatever is not clear to me. And I'm a product person, so I can dig pretty deep to figure it out. But I'm like, if I can't figure it out, then they're definitely missing that telling me as a consumer why this one's higher priced. And then always have to monitor the market and the competition just so you know what's out there. For services, I would try to see if you can build it into the contract. Like I talked earlier about like an annual cost of living raise, if you're doing like a retainer or a subscription. You can do, if you're trying to increase prices to existing customers, you could do a gradual, like sometimes you have customers that are like grandfathered in at an old price and you're like, you really shouldn't be paying that anymore for what you're getting because everybody on the new customers are getting at a higher price because, you know, you're just being loyal to your old customers. So can you step them up over time? Say, look, over the 5 years, my business has shifted, costs have increased. I value as a customer that you've been with me from the beginning, but my costs have just gone up and we need to kind of step you up so you're paying what current customers do today for that same service that you're providing. So just think about, over time, can you don't shock them, but can you do a kind of a stepped increase plan with them? Every new customer, look at seeing about raising prices. Just because you quoted somebody a week ago something doesn't mean you can't quote somebody tomorrow a different price. Like they don't know, they're not talking, but you can kind of start testing your prices and maybe look at with, or any new customers going forward, implement your new pricing policy. Don't keep giving them again something from 2 years ago, your price, evaluate, and your new customers should be getting a different price based on nothing else, just cost of living, but that the current market conditions today. And then with services, I would say make sure it's a clear scope of work and then renegotiate, requote if it's out of scope. I talked earlier about if you have a project you're working on and somebody comes like, hey, can we just add in this other thing? Your response is absolutely, we can do that. That's out of scope of this current project, but I would be happy to give you a new quote for that. And we can add that into this work, but I'll give you a new quote and we can go from there. It's never just like, sure, we'll slide it into this current project. No, let's say great. And that's why you have to have a clear scope of work. But you want to be happy to take their money and to do more business with them and to add this new project on top of the current one or on a side or at the end of the current one, whatever works, depending on what it is. But you'd be happy to do it for them. We'll just re-quote that new project for you. And then if you can do like bundles and packages, that might help. Again, the perceived value of a bundle of things lets you charge a higher price, even if individually those things may not, like, okay, I've kind of shot myself in the foot a little bit on my pricing. If I feel like I need to like a gap until I can increase, try bundling things, because bundles always have a higher, even if the same three things, like, and they don't cost you anymore because you're just bundling it together. But for some reason, consumers and that behavioral science, if I bundle things together, I feel like I'm getting more value. Even if I could buy the three things separately, it's like putting them together and it's not creating more work for you because you already have the bundles together. It's not like you're creating new bundles and new things to put in there. Or if you can do something and like add a little more value in, but it's a very simple, like it's a workbook or a checklist or something that adds a little more perceived value, even if it's not a lot of extra work for you, into a bundle, can help you, again, that perceived value and charge a higher price for that. Publish pricing. So think about it always from the customers. We get this question sometimes about, should I publish, not publish? My competitors will see my price, whatever. So publishing pricing from the customer's perspective, products, you're always going to publish a price. No one's going to buy something if they don't know what the price is. I would be careful about looking at, again, that MSRP or list price versus the actual like sell price or net price. So you'll see a lot of like pricing listed and then a slash but your discount today, or if you buy, and you can give incentive pricing. So sometimes you'll have like online courses do this a lot, where they incentivize like the cart is closing at a certain time and like early bird pricing and that kind of stuff. That's fine because it's very limited and it's very specific. You have a very specific goal. You're trying to get people to act and incentivize them to act, but you don't just like leave the discount out there forever for people. So there's, again, different pricing levers have very specific reasons for doing them. But again, for products, you're going to publish a price. For services, in general, my recommendation is publish pricing, because as a consumer, if I go to a website about coaching and I look at it and I have no idea what the price is, I, as a consumer, I'm like, well, how do I know if they're right for me? They could be you could be priced way out of my league. And I'm like, okay, I know you're not for me. So I always say it to publish pricing, because from the consumer standpoint, it lets me know if this is even something that's in the realm of my budget, because I've got a budget in mind, whether there's a general, like what I think this is going to work, or pricing at least tells me, wow, my budget is really off. This, like, everyone's pricing is like coming in, like, this is higher than I expected overall. And then I know that like I need to reset my expectations. If you're concerned about publishing a specific price, you could do, a range or a starting at price, because you might tweak it or tailor it if you do some customization. Then just say starting at, or prices range from 3,000 to 5,000 or whatever. You could give that if you don't want to give a specific price. But hey, just because you put a price there tomorrow on the website does not mean you can't change that price tomorrow. Like, totally can. Again, offering those packages or tiered pricing. establishes the value. You also want to putting pricing out there weeds out those, I call them tire kickers. Those people that aren't the right fit for you because you don't need, like for me, I want to self-select myself. If you are coaching that's charging 5,000 a month, I not me. Like that's not my expectations. You're not the right coach for me. I need to find something different. Or maybe it's just too much, I don't need that, whatever it is, it's not a right fit. Not good, bad, or otherwise. It's just we're not a right match. And you don't want to spend time with people that aren't the right fit for you. I mean, for them and for you, you want to make it a win-win. So having those pricing expectations kind of weeds out the people that aren't the right match for who you're targeting with your business. It establishes those expectations up front, which is great, where people know like, oh, you aren't, this isn't going to be some little like cheapy thing that I can do. Like, no, this is like a serious investment and I need to treat it as a serious investment, not just like I buy it. If I do it, I don't do it, whatever, and it sets like, no, 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 you're going to have some skin in the game and this is going to be like a true kind of commitment, or the service isn't for, everyone. It's for this specific type of customer. Um, the other thing you can do is, again, you can easily change them. One other option is if you're really concerned about publishing pricing, is like you could have your tiers and packages out there. And then when they sign up to do a discovery call with you, at that point, you could send them a pricing kind of one pager that gives you your packages with like the pricing and the ranges, because you want them to self-select out before you spend time on a discovery call. You don't want to go through a discovery call with them and go, great, let's work together. Here's my pricing. And they go, oh, no, that's way too much. I can't do that. And they're out. And you just wasted whatever time on that discovery call, like because they weren't the right fit to begin with. And you could have saved time for them and you, um, by having that. So I would at least, if you don't publish them online, it's going to be harder for people to like sign up because they're going to like, oh, I don't know what this is going to charge me. Like this may be way out of my league. Second step is sending them a one pager before the discovery call, but after they sign up, so they can go at that point self-select out like, wow, this isn't really at all like in my, like it's just not in my budget. Not good, better, otherwise. Again, your prices are your prices of your value. Don't ever feel bad about what you're charging. It's just not the right customer for you, not the right fit. Again, these are just the last little tips, and I think we're almost to the end, and then we'll do some more questions. You should view pricing from a customer's perspective, not from your perspective. It's always what the consumer values, their perception, their feelings, you know, their what they want out of what solution and problem that they're trying to solve. Don't race to the bottom. You're never going to be Walmart. You're never going to have the best cost position. You're never going to have you need to, as a small business, get across that your value is because you're small, you're nimble, you can personalize, you have high touch, whatever it is, but you're going to have to kind of be more positioned as not a premium, but you're going to be a high value kind of business or service product versus a low end commodity race to the bottom type product or service. Price on value, not a commodity, focus on that messaging. So it's the value to the consumer and what their perception of value is what's going to need to be in all your marketing and messaging. Discount with caution. You may do it like, say, I know a lot of people will do like for online courses, they'll do like an early bird, or maybe you have a conference and you see the early bird pricing. That's a very specific reason they're doing that. It's an incentive they need to get signups and registrations, and they need them early to start tracking stuff. So they're discounting, but it's very limited, very specific time, and it's very specific reason. Early bird pricing. It's not the regular price. It's some special we're giving you. So if you do discount, just discount with a caution or with a specific reason, not just, oh, I'm having a sale, let's just discount for no reason. I would, instead of discounting, what I would prefer you do is add value to bolster the price or the perception. So if instead of doing a discount on like getting in the door, the first 30 people get a discount, whatever it is. Say the first 30 people get this workbook or this checklist or this extra accessory onto this product. Like I would rather you add a little bit of because that's not going to cost you that much to add in there, but the perception of that will be greater and show that you're increasing the value versus I'm giving you a discount and I've decreased the value, now the price point looks down, because that's always going to affect consumers. So again, think about adding things that are simple and doesn't take much time, or maybe things you already have and you can add like little bonus things on, like the first 30 get this bonus to a 30-minute discovery call with me, or whatever, like whatever it is. It doesn't take a huge amount of time, but it's a limited time bonus if you sign up versus you get a discount. Think about it that way. You can, instead of discounting, I would suggest for products or services, maybe you de-feature, you offer a package or a product that's lower in price, but it's a regular price, but it's because you've de-featured things down to hit that lower price point. You didn't just say, take this price and take the same product and I put a discount on it. But can I do a de-featured version to hit that lower price point instead of discounting? Because again, consumers will then go, oh, I see you've taken out these things, and that's why it's the lower price, not like, oh, you just took 25% off. So obviously you were gouging me at the higher price, right? Because your everyday price now is 25% or something. So and you don't want to train them that the lower price is the regular price with discounts. If you ever do discount, get something for it. Like you have to sign up by this date, or a lot of times people will discount if you're going to buy X amount, like, okay, I'll give you a volume discount, especially on products. If you buy 100 of these, I'll give you a discount because you're buying a volume, not just 10. So you might do that kind of discount, but you're getting something for, like, I'm getting a bigger order from you and I'll give you a volume discount. So that's kind of common with products, but you're not giving it away. You're like, fine, if you want to sign up and order X amount more, and you need to do the math to make sure that the discount you're offering is covered by the additional volume that you're making up that discount. But that's one option. You might do a discount if you're doing, like, sometimes if say you're launching a new course or new program and you want to test it out with some people, you might offer a discount, like as a beta, like being a beta tester. Again, I would tell people, like, hey, my full price for this offer is X. It's a new one for me, so I want to run it through some beta testers, and I'll discount it, but I'm showing you the full price is X. You're going to get it for this because you're going to be my beta testers, but I need you to show up and do the program. I need feedback from you. I will send you surveys that you have to fill out. Like, I'm going to get something for you. You're going to be giving me grace when something gets buggy and not yell. You're going to share, and because you're going to be, things are going to be buggy. There's going to be some tweaks I make after this, and it's going to be a little rough at times. So again, you're getting something back from the beta testers for the discount, but they need to know that the regular price is this. I will give you this price, and I'm limiting to this number, and I have these expectations from you as a beta. You don't just get the discount. You have to do all these things as being part. Some people won't do it, but you're going to set those expectations for what you expect the beta testers to give back to you for that. Again, don't have constant sales, just trains customers to wait to purchase. I know so many products especially do this, but when it's coming up, if you can wait. Like, it's the Labor Day sale and it's the Mother Day sale and maybe you have a Black Friday or a sale once in a while, but you should always still discount with caution, because you got to make sure that you're going to have the volume or the sales bump, the revenue bump to cover that discount. But so many businesses just have constant sales, and then it's just like, well, why would I buy now? I know they're going to have a sale in another month. I'll just wait till then to buy, because especially if it's something that they make kind of repeated purchases, they just will wait. Again, establish that anchor pricing. So I talked about having the tiers and the things that you can do to anchor the price value up here. And then you can, like, have a de-featured tiers down, but that you need to start kind of with, even if you never sell a premium one, I mean, you should sell some, but even if you never did, it still anchors that. And then it's easier for the consumer to compare, like, oh, this is everything. I don't need everything, but this looks like a good deal in comparison to everything. They can see a clear progression, and they can see, like, a clear reasoning why the pricing is stepped the way it is. And it gives them a comparison on the website without having to go out to competitors. They can go, oh, well, I can see how this is comparing here, and it gives them those options within your own website and platform and offering, as opposed to you only offer one product or service and then they have to go out and compare. Is that a good price or not? I don't know. Let me go out and compare to competition, and maybe you lose them at that point. There's one little last tip. I know we're a little over time and I apologize. That we're ending. If you ever know why we do a lot of pricing, you'll see things ending in the odd number, especially direct to consumers. So it's the night, something at 9.99 or 9.97. That's like a little secret tip on pricing. You see it online services, packages, bundled, as well as with products. You see it in retail, but it's always consumer pricing. Is if you're selling to another business, that's a different, it doesn't quite the same driver. But the odd number is a little pricing trick where if you see a 9.99 or 9.97, in our brains, again, we're not rational creatures at times, humans. So what we end up doing is that we end up rounding down. Like instead of we should round up, say 9.97, it should be I should go up to 1,000, right? No, somehow because it's under that 1,000, like you in our brains we round it down and think, oh, that's a better price, like it's lower than what it is. Don't ask me why. And then the other thing is sometimes people will think, oh, well, it's 9.97 or 9.99. Like that company that shaved every bit of pennies that they could off that price for me. Like the perception is that it's like 1,000 sounds arbitrary. It sounds so round and even, like it's just a made up number. But 9.97, they really worked to get to that number. There's a reason that number is there. They really worked to get every bit of savings out of that. It's not. It's just it's our minds playing the games, and we can't help how we function as humans. But it's really like in our minds, we subconsciously think, wow, there's a reason why it's 9.97, not just an even 1,000, right? They must have some reasoning behind that. They must have really thought about that pricing. They really worked to make sure that it was, 9.97 was right and not just rounded up to 1,000. It's playing with numbers within our own heads. We do that as consumers. So nothing and then the companies are just taking advantage of that. That's how we think. So it's kind of crazy. It's what we do. Again, just to recap, know your customers' cost target, revenue target, profit margin, competition. We kind of talked about those. Establish that value position messaging so it aligns with your pricing. Pick a model or strategy and just go with it. And you can combine two together, but just get started, but have a reason why you're pricing it the way you are. And then you have to adjust and monitor, and that's great. And that's totally normal for the rest of your business. You're never going to feel like you dial it, or if you dialed it in one day, doesn't mean it's going to be the same the next day because markets are always changing. But just kind of have a reason for why you're doing what you're doing, as opposed to just kind of like, I don't know, I'm just throw this price out there. And then whatever price you pick, whatever you do, and especially with products, I mean, it's usually the price is there, but especially with services, you need to price with confidence. You're saying, I've done the work, I've done the homework, I've looked at the things, I've done the research. This is where the price needs to be. And price with confidence and say your price and be done and stop talking. We just stop talking. Don't start backing down, just saying, because if you're confident, then that whoever your customers can go, oh, they really feel this is the price for it. Like they may disagree, may not be the right customer, but you're going to say, hey, based on my value, my expertise, my research, all the things I've done, this is the price it needs to be, and like be very confident of that. And then again, because consumers are going to read, if you're not confident, they're going to go, well, I can tell that you don't think that's the real price, so why should I pay that if you don't believe in that price yourself? So they'll pick up on that and kind of go, you don't believe that, so obviously there's some wiggle room there and let's negotiate down. So just kind of be confident, say, well, this is what it is. And then if they push you that it's too high a price, say, okay, then let's look at taking some things out. Let's look at removing some of the services. If this price isn't working for you in your budget, fine. All right, what's your team willing to do? And we'll take out of the scope of work that you'll take on yourself, and that'll take my costs down. So you're not discounting it. You're defeaturing the offer to say, okay, well, maybe you don't need this part and this part, and we can take that out of the quote and I'll requote you, you know, but you're taking work out of the scope, or you're taking features out of the product. You're not just saying, okay, let's give you a 25% discount. Then they're gonna go, oh, obviously you're gouging me because you can do the same work for less. So it's like, no, well, let's work at taking some of the scope of work out and readjusting based on your budget. So, and that is the end. So go forth, raise your prices. So if you have time, I can go through some of the whoops, go through some of the questions. Let me go, I'm going up in the chat to see. I appreciate everyone staying on. That was took a little longer, but there were some good questions. Um, okay, so I don't see anything in the chat. Wait, or did I miss it? Pricing is the same price for everything, not charging shipping. Woo. So shipping is a contentious thing. The Amazons of the world have trained us that shipping is free for everything, right? Shipping is being charged. It's just, so the question is whether you build the shipping into your price or you build the shipping in as a separate fee. I would say right now, um, if you build it into your price, then be very clear that this, includes shipping or whatever is included in there. So the customer knows that they're really paying for shipping. It's just built into the price already. And they don't think that the price, like, you need to be very clear that this includes shipping. You also would have to be very on top of shipping rates and how things change, because I know shipping is be very volatile and things can change a lot. So, and you'd have to like make sure that if you have different products, different weights, different sizes, all that stuff, that you're capturing, if you're doing a flat shipping across everything and your products are all the same size and weight, and that works. But if you have different sizes, different weights, then you'd have to adjust your pricing if you're including the shipping. Um, the thing with, or you could just have your whatever your e-commerce site just add shipping on, and then, because the problem with including shipping is you're trying to ship, well, is that just the domestic, that's that just the contiguous 48 states and doesn't count Alaska and Hawaii, which it usually doesn't. It doesn't count international shipping. It does, because that can be super expensive, like just to go to Canada. Um, so you'd have to make sure that this was just domestic shipping or the contiguous 48 states, or if you do a flat rate, um, and that adjusts. So that's a tricky one. I mean, people kind of expect, if I go shop at a small business, I'm usually expecting to pay shipping. So I kind of know that or I guess if you include it in there, are your shipping rates the same if I ship it to the state next to me, or if I ship it halfway across the country? It's going to be different rates. You have to kind of look at where your shipping package is and average that out across all of where most of your customers are. They, halfway across the United States? Are they really next door? Are they really kind of local, regional, where it's not as much cost than shipping across the country? So there's a lot of things about including shipping that you need to track and keep on top of. I said the easier thing is just to have your e-commerce site just add in the shipping when they put their shipping address in, it calculates the shipping cost. The downside is that we don't get it's, if you can sign up for like a business account with maybe like the UPSs or something like that to see if you can get a discount on shipping, might be helpful, versus paying just the regular like consumer rate for shipping. They usually will give you like a business rate. Uh, yeah, but if you're going to include shipping, be very clear that it's included so the consumer doesn't think, like realizes part of that price, why it might be higher prices, because it does include shipping. And that's some of the reason, if they're doing a price comparison, like, well, why is this much and this one over here is this much? This one includes shipping. This one has shipping added afterwards. And then just be very on top of your shipping rates. Let's see. I'm going into the Q&A now. Oh, I don't see anything. All right, so oh wait. How do you find pricing from competitors in industry that does not publicly post pricing information, such as business consulting, project management, niche consulting? Um, so I would look at trade associations because a lot of times they might have some kind of where they aggregate data on the backside to kind of say what's industry standard for consulting rates and that kind of stuff within their industry. Um, you could talk to customers, clients that have used other services and say, well, kind of, you know, what was the rate for them? You, I don't want to say this is kind of bad, but there might be industry thought leaders that talk about that market, that industry, and what the average. Again, the problems will be that you're going to get average consulting rates. They might say, well, in general, consultants charge this to this. You still have to do your specific, but you might get a range for that. I would talk to customers too. If you're quoting if you're quoting and you're not getting business, I would ask them saying, well, why did you pick somebody else over there? And they may come back and tell you like, hey, I talked to so and so and their rates are this and your rate was this. So ask about why you're losing. If you're losing quotes or business, I would look at some coaching is they publish like their rates online. So maybe other industries. So whether you're in like maybe you're in business coaching, but maybe you look at lifestyle coaches or you look at other types of coaches. Oh, there's probably I think in like trade, isn't there like a coaching trade association that like for business coaches or like to get certified in business coach or get certified as coaching? And they may have, when you're a member, you can get access to a lot of information that you can't get on the outside. And so I would look at maybe those associations when you're a member, you get other benefits too, but they probably, a lot of those will have like annual surveys of their members and pricing could be part of that or the average consulting rates or things to think about. That could be another one. Trade associations are great information and you only get it though as a member on the backside um, because they aggregate the data and anonymize it so it's not one person sharing and it's going to be the downside is it's across the whole country. So somebody in California might charge a much higher rate than here in Tennessee, only because California cost of living, but it will at least give you, in general, some guidance on that. Hopefully that helps, Harry. Okay, I don't see any other questions. Let me go back to the chat. All right, is there anything else left? Oh, sorry, I can stop sharing real quick. Any other questions? Like I said, if you don't have a mentor today, I'd say sign up for one. They're a great resource, kind of that business coach. Well, here's a free, we do it as a nonprofit, so it's different. I mean, than a consultant, but there's probably business coaches that can help you too with, mentors that can help in that consulting field too, to help give you some guidance. Um, the other thing I would just say is like, you gotta talk to people like where your potential customers are. Um, if you're looking at executives, business coaching, they're going to pay more than say a different kind of maybe like your target customer, they're going to have, you know, a little more, but they're going to be much higher power. They may be more stressed. They're going to have different challenges being at that level. And, versus just a general like health and wellness coach, working with a lot of individuals might be a different type of pricing structure than like executive coaching. But there's a book. It may be a little older now. I can't think of it now. I'm like consulting. Like look for books. The information might be dated a little bit, depending when the book was published, but there could be there's a guy that wrote a bunch of books about consulting businesses, like setting up a successful consult. I wish I could remember his name. Alan Weiss, Weiss. Check his stuff out. Check to see that again, they may not, could be a little dated, but it might have some information in there that could give you, at least at some point in time, if it's 2 years old or something, or they might have, uh, resources like where you can like a coach for a coach, basically, of programs where you can, you can get some information on um, setting up a consulting consulting or coaching business, and some pricing guidelines around that. All right. Um, Hopefully that was helpful. You should get the recording later, and then the slides, Michelle will send those out. The slides are very text heavy, but I noticed because you guys refer to them later, and I hate slides that have like one word on them and then you get it later and like, what's the word grow mean on this slide? I don't even remember. So I do put a lot of text on them so you can kind of go back, and again, it's a lot of information. It's very overwhelming. Just kind of pick one thing to kind of get started with, and then pick another thing, or just like hone in on one kind of nugget that you want to kind of start implementing, or at least like looking around and kind of, start experimenting with, or, maybe it's something new that you offer in your product or service, and it's like for like a testing different things. So figure out ways that you can kind of start like working on the foundations in the beginning if you need some feedback, and then kind of start implementing some of the pricing strategies into your business. But thanks for your time. I appreciate it. I apologize for going a little long, but there were some great questions in the chat, so I appreciate that interaction. And if you have any other questions, of course, reach out to SCORE. Check out the website for other upcoming workshops. We have a lot of great ones coming up. And then if you don't have a mentor, reach out to on the website and get one assigned for your business. But I appreciate everyone's time this morning. Thanks.